Anyway, we should probably start the show. Although, I don't know how much attention I'll be paying to my own words, never mind yours, as I watch this Eagles game on my phone.
Consider it one.
Cast Iron Brains, a podcast that has some thoughts after listening to a rerun of a This American Life episode this week about assisted suicide, about marriage, and a podcast that will keep those thoughts to itself this week. My name is Bob, sitting across the way from my good friend and co-host. That's Abe. How you doing tonight, Abe?
Doing well, Bob.
Yeah, here we are. Lori's not here. Lori is upstairs. It's just the dudes tonight, Abe.
Look at that.
No harpies or other offensive words that I probably could come up with.
Open up the playbook.
That's right. We can do whatever we want. Mostly what we want to do tonight, sadly, is to watch the game cast of the Eagles versus the Bucks. A titanic clash of two 2-0 teams that could have serious playoff implications. No, it's week 3. This game doesn't fucking matter, except that I have a large... There we go. Touchdown Eagles. Fucking fly, Eagles, fly. Let's go. A not inconsiderable sum of money rests on the outcome of this game. Not so much in terms of what I stand to lose, but what I stand to gain.
Right. Insurmountable lead, some would argue.
Look at that. Up by 16 points right now. 9 minutes to go in the third quarter. Eagles have to win by 4.5 points or 5 points in a more coherent way of talking about it. But give me a win by a comfortable 10 or 15, and I'll be much more comfortable, Eagles.
Right. And there's been a couple of blowout games this weekend. This could kind of follow along because Baker Mayfield did not inspire a lot of confidence, so there's no chance of a comeback in the second half. So it should be good.
I mean, he can sling it. That Baker Mayfield can get it done sometimes. Boy, he was all over the television for a couple of years there, wasn't he, with the commercials?
Oh yeah,
We're not seeing the Baker Mayfield Allstate commercials or whatever. He was some sort of insurance salesman, wasn't he?
He was, yeah, because he I don't remember which insurance company, but he was at the stadium, he's kind of living there. That was kind of the scheme. He just happened to live wherever the Browns play.
Right.
And yeah, I do wonder though,
the Browns got rid of him for that weird massage rapist guy.
Right. And just to show you there's no justice in this world, things are kind of getting better with the Cleveland Browns. They had a solid performance this past weekend. Initially, it was looking kind of shaky, this $200+ million contract for somebody of some, disrepute.
There's no justifying it. I know that you'll justify it in terms of the relative amount paid for other players, right? Like Joe Burrow then gets the biggest contract ever, and then yes. Mahomes gets his contract rejiggered so that he's now making more money. I don't know how it didn't make any sense to me. Apparently, the contract didn't get any bigger, but somehow he's now the highest paid. Whatever.
It seems
doesn't matter.
It's some sort of smoke and mirrors with they just want that headline, right? They just want the headline I'm the richest quarterback.
Right, but bottom line is there's no moral or financial justification for the paying of these idiots. I mean, even if they're not idiots, let's say they're actually very smart and intelligent people.
But they're not getting paid for being smart or intelligent.
$50 million a year. It's an obscenity.
It is a lot. I think your boy, Deshaun, with the 20-plus allegations against, he's the only quarterback or only player altogether who has 100% contract, right? Because everything else, even with Mahomes, it's not fully guaranteed. It's like getting to the upper limits, but it's not fully guaranteed. Every penny that he signed a contract for, he's going to receive Deshaun Watson, which no one repeated. It was kind of an outlier because people were thinking, oh, is this a new way forward? And all the other GMs were like, fuck no. We're not
No.
doing this
That's
thing.
just the Browns. If you want to go play for them, maybe they'll write you one of those, but not over here. Here's the situation with the game. Let's just get this out, the gambling stuff, because I will be watching this game fairly closely here as we go along. The 6-way parlay, I bet $10. It was 6 different games. I hit the first 5 out of 6 yesterday, which is like the ideal situation coming into a Monday. It's like, okay, I've hit a large portion of what needs to happen for my bet to be successful, and I just need one more thing. And what that sets up is the ability to either hedge your bet or simply cash it out for a nice, profitable return. So going into tonight's game, FanDuel, which is not a sponsor of the show, but is the betting app of choice at this particular podcast here in Virginia anyway, was offering me just $200. They're like, here, we don't know what's going to happen tonight, but you've put $10 in. We'll give you $211 right now if you just walk away.
Right.
Hey, we don't want to mess around anymore. You could lose that $10, or you could gain $211 right now, and we'd be done. And I chose not to do that. And further, I chose not to hedge my bet by betting some moderate to substantial sum on the Bucks to cover the 4.5 points, right? To win with the 4.5 point advantage. Was that foolish of me, Abe?
Well, let me ask you, is your motivation for not doing that, is it because you're not superstitious, so like there's no need for that? Or it's because you remain confident that, especially of all the different legs of the parlay, this one you're confident in, right? So like if you cleared all the other hurdles, like this is a shoe-in. See,
it's not confidence, because the way that I figure out the bets that I'm going to make on any given Saturday or Sunday morning is that I'm sitting there drinking my coffee and I'm looking at the bets and I'm saying that one and then that one, and I'm doing no further research. It's just click. That strikes me as a thing that might happen. Click, click, click. And through many years of this, because this is, I think, my 3rd NFL season that it's been legal here in Virginia. And then, of course, a long time ago, there were extra legal means of doing sports gambling. I have never hit a parlay of this size before, a 6-way. And that is I don't know why, but that's always been my preference. There's something about the turn $10 into something between ridiculous. $400 and $600 that really appeals to me. There's something about like getting to that approximate return that's what I'm aiming for.
Right.
And I've never hit one. I've hit 5 out of 6 a bunch of times. It's never happened. It's finally. I mean, it looks pretty good.
Come on, it's happened. It's already happened. The people who
First
are
of all,
listening
fuck
to
you.
this,
Fuck you. Stop it. Because the last time that I was this close was like 2009. And you posted publicly on Facebook, like, all that Bob Howard needs to do to hit his parlay is for whatever game was on in like the 10 o'clock slot. Like some Pac-10 game was what my parlay rested on. And it was one of these 6-way deals where I was going to make like $400 or $500. And that team immediately, like within 15 minutes of you posting that, the team starts getting blown out, and I was fucked.
I don't know the chances that happens again. I mean, come on.
Right. The point, though, is that I'm not exactly in the gambling. As I've said before, my goal as a gambler is just to be a subsistence bettor. Like I just want to keep enough money in the gambling app to guarantee that next Saturday or next Sunday when I'm sitting on the couch and I'm drinking my coffee and thinking about football, that I can throw another $25 to $50 on the weekend's games and just see what happens. And if I lose all of my money in the gambling app, I mean, eventually, I guess I would reload money into it, but I haven't in the 3 years that I've been doing this. I've just been keeping a nice little nest egg there in the gambling app, and it waxes and wanes, as one would expect. Currently, it's disastrously low. It was down with this bet to double digits for the first time, like under $100 was my total.
Lean times. You're down
in the app. for the first time in a while, I got down below $100 like halfway through the season last year and then hit a couple of bets. This is all very thrilling content, I'm sure. But I hadn't hit anything. In the first few weeks of this season, I lost some money on baseball as the year went on. So I was down as low as I've been basically ever. And like the smart thing to do would just be to cash it out, right? Just take the $210 or whatever they were offering me before. Speaking of which, I should go check what the cash out is right now. I gotta log back in. So
it's a running kind of thing, like it's live. You can.
Yeah, live. They're always like, "Are you sure you don't want to back on at us?" Like, so right now, it's 20-3. The Eagles just got the ball back after a punt. It's 1st and 10 at their own 13, with 7 minutes to go in the third quarter. FanDuel says, take $358.11 right now.
Right.
Just do it. You just click the button, and your $10 has suddenly become $360. Instead, I'm going to sit here and hold out for $438.
Right, which you should. Because, I mean, you're leaving
but
money.
But I could lose all of the money.
Come on,
still,
you're not going to lose all the money.
In my head, I have to convince myself I'm not losing $400 if this bet goes south. I'm losing $10, which I had gladly already spent on Sunday morning when I said these 6 unlikely things are all going to happen in a row in order for me to get any money back out of this deal, right?
Right.
So, like, part of it is I just want the thrill of having beaten FanDuel, right? And the way that I do that is by not cashing out and not handing them what would now be about $80 out of my winnings.
Right.
And part of it is like, it's just fucking fun. Like, the fun part is to say, I think these 6 things will happen, and then those 6 things happen.
Right.
And that's the thrill is not in the money. It's the thrill is in having gotten it right. And that's
and also there's a story there that you hit on a 6-way parlay. Had you opted for the money, like a quarter and change left, that would be a coward's way out, right? You couldn't tell that story honestly.
You can't tell that fucking story. You don't tell anybody that, I cashed out for $350 because I'm awesome at getting 5 out of 6 right. Like, no, you're a fucking jackass.
But people, to go further, I mean, that would give the impression that you backed out pre-game. You're backing out with the team that you're supporting is up by 17 when they only need 4.5.
Let's not say supporting. All right, it's still the Eagles. Now, there's a lot of Bulldogs on this team, so it's not hard for me to be excited when DeAndre Swift goes gashing up the middle for 18 yards. But like, it's still the Eagles. Right. And it's gross to have to root for them, but like, that was not in my consideration when I started this on Sunday morning.
Is there a reason why the NFL is doing another doubleheader? Because this is the second week. I mean, this is 3 weeks in, and the first week they didn't do it. They usually do a big open when they have a doubleheader, East Coast, West Coast.
Right, but those in the past, they've been terrible, right?
They have been, but at least they separated them. Like, there'd be some Chargers game late or whatever, and there'd be like an early game somewhere else. But like now, it's like an hour apart, maybe. It's kind of weird. Like, they have the staggered start.
Yeah, I kind of like it. I'm kind of for it, I think.
But what is it because they have an empty slate on their fall calendar and ABC's like, we need to plug in some content?
I don't know. So I know that that's why these games are airing on ABC and apparently will for the next couple of months.
Yeah,
although I guess maybe they'll go back on that now if they're going to get.
I suspect they won't have time to do anything about the fall window, so they'll probably continue on the present course and they'll have something ready for the.
Well, I guess, but what is a 5-month? I mean, we've not talked about this stupid Hollywood writers' strike because whatever. But what does a 5-month? What does a 5-month hiatus really do? I mean, I'm sure that there wasn't work getting done, but like, does that really ruin an entire network's plan for things?
I don't know how they come up with these, but we just accept certain things as like, well, I guess that's the number. But you always want like a number to kind of to kind of illustrate like what the damage was. So like the writer's strike, there's been multiple strikes. The actors are still on strike, but the writer's strike, which started back in May. There's some sort of agreement in principle, and the dollar amount that they gave was $5 billion. They say that somehow that Hollywood in general lost $5 billion worth of something, like opportunity cost or like some money they could have been making. So I don't know what you can do in these like 4 months or 5 months.
That sounds made up. I don't believe that
But
number
that
at
is
all.
the number that was said confidently on the
I
evening news.
reject that out of hand.
Nora O'Donnell's coverage said $5 billion.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I mean, good for them. I guess they were getting hosed on, or potentially getting hosed on the streaming rights and the residuals when the things go to Netflix or what have you.
Right. The curious thing seems to be the length of this agreement. You know, so there's $5 billion hit to the Hollywood whatever, 4 months, 5 months of acrimony, and an agreement is reached, and it's for 3 years, right? And so like one of the big sticking points was this AI issue where they didn't want companies to be using images of people to kind of like, I don't know, act for them. But you would think like if Hollywood wants to do this, they're like 3 years is not that big of a deal, so we'll punt now when we have the weaker hand, and then we'll circle back in 3 years and try again. I think they'll continue to try this until they have the upper hand. And so maybe that'll be in 3 years, that'll be in 6 years, but it just... You would have thought that I don't know how these deals go. You would want a longer window, so you don't have to go through this again so soon.
There's too much fucking television. This is something I've said on the show before. I think I promised Thousand Man Jerry that I would watch Severance this calendar year.
Oh, that's
I think
a good
that
show.
was to get him to stop telling me to watch Severance. I promised him that I would at some point in this calendar year watch the Apple TV show Severance. But my complaint is that there's too much fucking TV. There's way too much bad television, I think, on top of that. And like, by the way, the Max app, you were saying before we started tonight, because one of the liberties that we take with Lori upstairs instead of in the room is that with Lori out of the room first, we talked about the government shutdown before we even started recording. Like a couple of really cool dudes.
We don't know when we'll get a chance to do this again. Let's talk government.
That's right. And then shortly after that, you were saying that you were browsing your TV streaming apps, and your feeling is that there isn't as much new shit here lately. And then I said, you're a liar, because if you were really paying close attention, you would be regaling me with tales of what's been going on the new Max show about naked dating. Like it's there's this weird, like it's a dating show where they have just naked bodies, and the person has to choose among the 6 naked bodies who they want to go out with. And then when they get down to the final 2, I haven't watched this, I just read an article about it, they also have to take off all of their clothes and become subject to the judgments of the rest of it, and us too. Seems like a bad idea.
But I mean, yeah, we've come a long way from, what was it, The Love Connection? Wasn't there like a partition, and it was like on the strength of like their character or their charm or their voice?
Their character. It's on the strength of their ability to make funny quips about very corny sexual innuendo jokes. Right. Yes,
Strike
or questions.
That character argument.
Basically, who can get up there in like Marco Rubio on the 2016 debate stage fashion, make the most jokes about his giant wang and how the other guy doesn't seem like he's got as big of a fucking wang, and therefore we should go out to the Sizzler that this Chuck Woolery production is going to pay for.
I haven't seen the show, but I assume that all the contestants, especially the man, cannot be in an agitated state when they're naked, right? They have to be... in a docile
who can
state?
Control such things, Abe? And also, what are we considering agitated? Ultimately, I mean, agitated for one person is simply how they present normally for the next guy. Anyway, gross shows. I don't remember why I brought it up, except to say that there's too much television. There's way too much bad television. I'll eventually get to Severance, Jerry. Don't worry, but. I think that what's interesting about this kick the can down the road 3 years thing in order for the studios to come back and make another deal with the writers union is I wonder, not necessarily that like AI is going to take over, but this whole content model that has blown up in the last 5 years where all of the major studios are first they were furiously like buying all of their content back up, sort of not licensing it anymore, so that they could. Sorry, there's an Eagles play. They got 1st and goal at the 1 now. Let's fucking go.
Greedy.
Just get out in front. Just get. Oh no! That must have been a punt. Wait, a safety? Safety! There we go. 22-3. We love it. All right, I'm going to turn that off now. Now I'm going to stop looking at it, and we're going to look at it again in like 15 or 20 minutes, and then we'll see. I don't have to watch it. Anyway, there was this move by HBO. A former way of making money is they would like license out The Sopranos to AMC or something, right? To some cable channel, and so you get to turn your Sopranos that you made all your money off of subscriptions for the 10 years that it was on your network, and now you're going to farm it out in syndication and make a bunch of money that way. Then you create your own streaming service, and in order to populate your streaming service with a bunch of shit that's worth watching, you can't just have that stuff be out there all willy-nilly for everybody else. And so all these companies start hoarding all of their content again. And then on top of that, Netflix comes along and is like just buying up everything. They're going to spend whatever billions of dollars a year on either the creation of content themselves, which is actually a relatively small number of projects, but a much larger number of projects they were just sticking their name on, basically, right? They're like licensing it the same way that a studio would choose to be a distributor for a film. They pile a bunch of money into it, and then they say, this is ours now. Now we saw in the last couple of years with the explosion of even more streaming services, this like, oh, well, hang on a second. People aren't signing up for HBO Max because they want to watch the first 4 seasons of Westworld that we're never actually going to finish the story of. So we take it off of the Max app and the HBO Max app, and now we're going to sell it back to like Tubi or Freevee or wherever the hell it is that you can now go watch Westworld as a commercially supported, like on commercial television. Free ad-supported TV. So now it's like very, very quickly in just a number of years we've gone through like 2 or 3 different understandings of the way that content needs to be created and hoarded or otherwise farmed out. In 3 years, do we not expect things to be drastically different once again? I don't think that I think we've reached peak streamers. Like, I don't think we're going to get a whole bunch of more of those. It looks like ABC is on the verge of being sold as part of like with Disney is trying to unload the ABC, ESPN, and Hulu situation on somebody. So I wonder if part of the resolution here of just deciding to kick things down the road a couple of years with the writers is to say we don't know what the world is going to look like in this regard in a fairly short amount of time, and we can figure it out then.
Right. I do think things will change. Now, in which direction this change will take place, like over the next 3 years, I don't know, because like as you described, there were a lot of streaming services out there for some time. But it turns out we don't need a Peacock, we don't need a Paramount Plus. Like, you know, the idea is to
so sorry to interrupt. CBS Now has just brought their most successful show from their streamer, Paramount Plus, which is the cowboy show. Maybe
I'll watch it now. But
some fucking crazy number of people apparently watch. If CBS's numbers can be relied upon, it's the most popular show on TV, even though it's not on TV. I've never seen even a second of it, but they've just added it to their Sunday night lineup, starting at the beginning. Like there's some 2 or 3 seasons in, but they're showing season 1, episode 1.
Oh, that's a good idea.
A couple of weeks ago.
And I assume the opportunity is because of the writers, you know, the impacts from the strikes, right? That their fall slate, because even though like the writer strike is nearing an end, it was indefinite, right? So when they're making these decisions for what's going to go on TV in the fall, they had no answer, right? So they had to pivot to something else. So even though like they resolved it now, you couldn't wait until late October to make a decision. So this is the approach that they took, which seems like a pretty smart one. Like this, they know this is a popular show, and for all the people who have not yet watched it, I guess there's still some. I haven't seen it. It'll be available on CBS for the next few months. You know, so that seems like a good idea. But like to go back to the point, like there is no need for a once the the strikes are resolved and we're into the winter and spring next year, there's still not going to be this enough support for a Paramount Plus or a Peacock. Like these companies are trying to create a walled garden, right? Basically, like before licensing, so like on Netflix or AMC, you can watch an HBO show, and then they kind of went to the walled garden model. Like, if you want our shit, you have to come to us, right? We're big enough to where we're going to drive traffic to us, and you can watch Game of Thrones on our platform and watch The Sopranos on our platform.
Right. And you know who that works for? That works for people for whom this is just a sideline. This is just some other thing that they're doing. That works for Apple, which apparently, like you go through the thing, and it's like every single one of their shows, or like they have a very high batting average in terms of shows that are apparently good, though I've never seen even 1 second of any of them. But people like a lot of the Apple TV shows. That works for Apple. That doesn't matter. They have a fucking $1 trillion in the bank. Like, they can do whatever they want. That is something that is entirely beside the point from their core business, and so it doesn't matter. I don't think that the same can be said for the people at CBS, Viacom, for the people at Disney, ABC, or for the Fox people.
Right.
Like, it's just not going to work in the same way.
But the thing is, like, even like a big company like HBO, and they did this merger with this other thing, Discovery or whatever, like where they have all this content, right? Even with all of their content, you think that they could sustain themselves, but even HBO is licensing some of their titles to Netflix, almost like as a concession, kind of going back to the old ways, where like a show like Insecure is on Netflix, right? It's an HBO show, but HBO decided, like, hey, more visibility to Netflix. Netflix is available everywhere, so whatever. We'll concede the point that they're here to stay, and we'll license them. So, like, I think the future will be some sort of hybrid like this, where there's gonna be some sort of contraction where I think Netflix is on solid footing. I think Apple, like you said, they have deep pockets, solid footing, and HBO should be fine. But all the others, I'm not sure.
But Max has gone from, in just a few short months, the one that I would like, if I have to keep any of them,
right?
Like, I would keep Max, probably. Like, to, like, why are we bothering? Like, I go and I scroll through the Max app, and there's just, at least it used to be like once a week or every other week, there'd be an event movie that came to Max. It's like, oh, fucking, this was just in theaters not all that long ago, right? And now it's just fucking Justice League bullshit. It's just like the only things that they get that are interesting or new are the DC extended universe nonsense that I just don't care about, unless I'll watch the Superman and the Batman movies, I guess, when they come out. But like, aside from that, like, there's just, I mean, it sounds like I'm just an old man complaining about about the pop culture of today, but it's nothing but trashy reality shows and home improvement stuff on that app. Like, it's not even worth visiting anymore.
Right.
Hardly.
It is actually a bit of a chore to join you in your old man yells at cloud moment, but I kind of have a similar thought. But like, as I'm going through the library of different shows that I have no interest in watching, I always think, like, somebody must be really happy, right? Somebody must be like scrolling through these options, and they're like, holy shit, zit popping, schlong, show me your schlong, or whatever. Like, all these shows, I'm sure somebody's getting a joy out of.
It's the same people who can flip through all of the hundreds of cable channels and be thrilled when they and like find something and be like, okay, yeah, I'll put that on. And like, to me, I go to the streaming app in order to find something that is better than just flipping through the cable bullshit and settling for something that, like, okay, yeah, I'll put South Park on because I know whatever. It's in the background. It doesn't fucking matter.
Right.
Well, whatever.
But, I know these are not your people, but the smug asshole with a show, kind of a recurring thing on HBO. So, like, there's the Real Time with Bill Maher and the Real Sports with Brian Gumbel. So the Brian Gumbel show is ending for some reason. HBO is just making these weird decisions. They got rid of boxing some time ago, whatever. Now they're getting rid of a sports magazine show, kind of like 60 Minutes, but just focused on sports. They did a pretty good job. It's only once a month. I don't know what the big issue is, and so there's not that to look forward to. Bill Maher getting old and kind of crotchety. Like, I'll still watch it when his is on, but like, a lot of the tentpole shows and like the reliable something on Sunday night show, no matter what, that's no longer counted on either. So it's like a lot of the strengths of HBO has kind of fallen apart because there's no show that's currently on.
Right. What is the must-watch, looking forward to show for them? And it's like, I guess we'll see if the new True Detective is any good.
Yeah,
and then
are
we'll
they pushing
see...
that back to kind of like try to ration it out?
Right. Who knows? And then there's the Stupid Dragon show, which I guess we'll watch because it's what we do.
There's another dragon show?
Well, season 2 of the...
Oh, that's coming out like in 24, 25 or something, right?
Right. That's what I mean. It's a long way off.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like other, like, not to shit on HBO any further, but why not? Like, and some of their recent attempts have failed. Like the Winning Time, a show about the Lakers and the Celtics, basketball, 80s, AIDS, all of this stuff. You think there's a target-rich environment for like a decent show, and it was garbage, and it got canceled. There was that other show with Johnny Depp's kid, a total disaster show. It was supposed to be like a look behind the scenes of like what makes a pop star, just the grossness of that industry. Right. And it just like the show just was not good, and they just canceled it. So like a lot.
Apparently, I didn't see any of that either. But apparently, it's hard to tell if the show is in on the joke or making the joke at all, or if it's all just sort of a mess. But
yeah, I'm not sure. But like it's HBO has
at the same time though. White Lotus is as good as TV gets, right? So like,
that's fine. And I mean, I just don't know what the next couple of years looks like, other than just like their Dragon show.
Right.
We'll see.
Anyway, I don't know what's going to happen in the larger TV landscape. It is interesting that Disney is trying to get out of the television business.
Is it like a money pit for them? Like, what is the motivation behind that? I don't know.
I think it's a question of like the writing on the wall with the cable rights contracts and all of that. So like ESPN just finished up a lengthy spat with Charter like a month ago, right? Like right at the start of football season or the college football season, ESPN and Charter, which I forget the brand name for their stupid, because Xfinity is Comcast. It's like Spectrum, I think is what Charter calls their cable TV offering. They were having a fight over the carrier cost, or like how much Disney was going to get for each cable subscriber.
Okay.
And apparently Disney basically got what they wanted, which was a larger share, and what they had to give up was like Charter can now offer some sort of a Disney Plus deal where if you subscribe to Spectrum, you also get Disney Plus on top of that.
Okay.
There's a broader theme here, and you'll forgive the stretch perhaps, but since we're talking about gambling, and a couple of weeks ago I mentioned that the liberalization of the marijuana laws in this country, and then you combine, so you've got things that we grew up talking about, right? Like we should have legalized weed. It would be better. We should have sports gambling. It's super lame that you can only do that in Vegas. Like, why is there this weird protected status thing? Like, I can just do it on my phone. Fuck it. Let us do this. What are you really protecting here? Something else that people used to complain about is I hate the cable monopolies. This is something I fucking complained about. Among the big gripes with the cable companies, this was less my particular problem. My particular problem was that it drove me crazy that in every apartment that I ever lived in and then house that I ever lived in, it's like if you want cable television, there's only one option, which doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Right.
Like there's no reason that information cannot travel across these cables that are already here, that the government has decided should only go to this. Like they make sweetheart deals with one particular company. It's like, whatever. That was my complaint. Other people's larger complaint was, I don't want to have to pay $140 to the one cable company that services my area in order to get 200 channels when I only watch like 6 of them. I want a smaller package. I want a boutique experience when it comes to the entertainment that comes into my house, not subsidizing. So like grandma has to subsidize all of the ESPN channels, so she's paying her $10 a month so that I can get the ESPN channels at my house, and I'm paying $4 a month so that she can get her gardening channel and her cooking channel or whatever at her house. Why isn't there an ability to pick and choose the content that we want? And we fucking got it. right? Like we have completely gone in the other direction on all of those three things that I just said, right? Pot is on the way to being decriminalized to legal in large portions of the country. Sports gambling is similarly on its way. In my state, in Virginia, it's regulated but legal. And the same goes for these your options when it comes to entertainment. Things have gotten much more wide open in terms of how you can choose to consume the content that is widely available to us. And in many ways, it's a be careful what you wish for sort of situation. Like as I said a couple weeks ago, I think there's going to be a backlash to the pot thing. I think there's going to be a massive backlash to sports gambling as we get generate like multiple years down the road,
right,
where a gambling addiction is nothing to fuck around with. I say this obviously as I'm on a night that I'm compulsively checking the scores of a game just so that I can win some money. But like I've never had a problem with gambling. I had a problem with smoking cigarettes. Right. I probably, if I chose to, could be an alcohol addict. Like that wouldn't be a stretch for me. I think I could get there with a little bit of work. And similarly with the gambling, like I can see the appeal, but I have enough of a handle on it where it's like I'm not going to be. Lori has no concern about me taking money out of the bank account or out of the mortgage or whatever to throw onto the Monday Night Football game. Right. Like that's not going to be a problem for me. It is going to be a problem for millions of people when the technology is such that it just lives in your hand all of the time, no matter where you go. A few years ago, you'd see a story every now and then about these goofy, what amount to slot machine games on your phone, where you just play a stupid level where it's like clear the bricks or like fucking line up the colors in the right order, and then you advance to the next level. And people were spending like $6,000 on getting bonus lives in a game that is free to play, right? A game that you get 5 free lives today, or you could buy the bonus power-ups and the bonus lives, and they were spending on their credit cards tens of thousands of dollars over the course of just a few months, right, just to play these stupid, what amounts to a gambling app on your phone, where the thing that you're gambling is fake money and the reward is fake money, but to do that, it costs real money. Yes. So if you think that we're going to go from that to an actual gambling app where I can bet at every single second, I can bet on the outcome of the next play. That's how they advertise them to us, right? Like fucking Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad is in this ad. Yeah. He's in this ad where he gets up there and he's in this like big fucking crazy like sports terror dome thing, and it's all fucking bullshit CGI. Right. But it's like he's in this enormous thing and he's like, I'm going to bet on the very next play. And it's like they're selling it to you as something that like you just inject it right into your fucking brain, like a Elon Musk Neuralink thing. And as though this is good, and then the government gets their claws into it because it's going to make a bunch of money for the schools or for the road improvements or whatever. I think there's going to be a huge backlash to that.
So I think weed and gambling are on two separate paths, right? I think weed, in many ways, I don't see there being a big. I mean, obviously, just like quality of life, like the smoking, the actual just people having to kind of take in all the smoke, they'll need to kind of do something about that in frequented areas, like in major cities. But I don't see,
and that's something that's something that'll be handled by social opprobrium. It'll be handled by the normal, like, look, that's just not how things are going to be. Like people will just not stand for it.
Right. And so basically, I think so that'll just kind of fall under like these nuisance kind of things, and then there's some deterrence. It'll be social, mostly just like social shaming, and then like some sort of law. But so I don't think big picture weed is going to cause a big problem. I think it'll be fine. But with gambling, not only is it legalized in many states, not in Georgia, or neither weed nor gambling is like fully legal in Georgia. Not that that's an obstacle for anything. But
is there any talk among politicians down there who are not of the Brian Kemp?
No, I mean there was some talk of like turning like parts of downtown into like like a casino style to kind of attract people to come and like bet on things instead of going. I think the nearest casino like Cherokee Casino, like in one of the Carolinas, like 3-hour drive if you're like a degenerate gambler. It's no big deal, but like they're saying like, why are we ceding all that money to those bums in the Carolinas when we can have some here? But nothing serious, nothing like, oh, in the next legislative session we're going to do this or that. But I'm sure by the end of the decade both will be legal in Georgia, but there's no particular hurry. But the problem I see with gambling is not only is it legal in a growing number of states, but the major sports leagues are like in league with these companies, right? They have shows surround the entire focus of the sports show, during the week, is centered around gambling and like the impacts of the sport has on your degenerate gambling, right? And so like, and they have commercials throughout the game, like like in the pregame shows, they'll try to work that in. Oh, Terry Bradshaw's money, like you can win it, or you could do this. They do like live reads during the broadcast about like some, whatever, some company like FanDuel or what have you. I think that's going to have an impact because it's not only like legal, it is like promoted to the top. I mean, they don't promote hard liquor like that, but they do with gambling. And so I think at some point, and by the way, it is so cynical, the throwaway, you got a gambling problem, call this. If you're in this state, call that. It's such a cynical resolution to a problem. Like, we're promoting this, like it's going to like the worst instincts of humans to like, oh, I can win this much money if I bet on this sure thing, right? Like, so you think that's like a quick, by the way, if you're in New Jersey and you got a gambling problem, call 1-800-DEGENERATE. That's going to solve the problems. It's not. It's going to create more problems. And every time kids start to watch the show, the shows, they're going to probably start gambling sooner than they otherwise would. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just making it up, but like I can see that being a problem. Where like
my kids, anytime we're watching a game, the question is, did you bet on this game and who are we rooting for? Like that's the
And it's how many years ago was the coy Al Michaels when he was a little more competent to broadcast, where he would make mention because it was a taboo thing, with Berman and others, you couldn't directly talk about gambling.
Right, but Al Michaels at the end of a Monday Night Football game would be like, well, we know who's still tuned into this one and why this is interesting for some of you guys out there. That shank is really interesting for some of you folks out there, isn't it? That sort of thing. That was fun. Like that was what made him one of the most fun dudes to listen to do a game. Is like every once in a while he would. First of all, he was great. So it's not just that he's slyly
and he had
acknowledging
the fastball that he doesn't have anymore. He's kind of like pace passive. Yeah, he should probably.
Right. I don't know what they're. I mean, that's a whole nother story. But that Thursday night Amazon, even when they have a decent game at this point, it's like this is not a professional level output.
And what's his face? The other guy is pretty good. I mean, the college guy is good, but like Al Michaels,
Herbie's okay. They have no chemistry whatsoever.
But it's kind of hard to have chemistry with a fucking old bag of bones. Al Mike, he's literally just checked out.
I know, but like Derp Street is such a herb. Like he's just such a sincere person who takes everything very seriously. And Al Michaels is not that, right? Like he's just not that guy,
right?
Which is to my preference. Like I prefer the Al Michaels approach, but also he's way too fucking old. He shouldn't be doing this anymore. And also on top of that, the stream sucks, and it's not my internet.
Isn't that something? What's up with that?
I have no idea. They can't handle apparently like Amazon Web Services, which is like the backbone of the entire global internet.
Or so I've been told for many years. Yeah.
Right. Apparently can't even stream a goddamn football game to the number of people who want to watch it on their service. I don't understand it.
Right. You're right. I don't get it.
I agree with you, though. There's something that was cute and fun about it when it was under the table, and I think that matters. Like I think it's when a vice is treated as a vice, and we sort of let it slide in large part, except for like say like in the same way that like hookers, you don't usually go after the girl working on the street, but you would go after some fucking sex trafficker who has in his employ 14 different women or something in a city, right?
Those services, yeah.
Right. in the same way you wouldn't go after some guy who goes down to with his buddies or something and has a Super Bowl pool or a one of those grids or whatever, or the March Madness thing at the office. But if it's some giant organized crime ring that some fucking asshole mafioso is running, maybe you go after that.
Right.
Is that the more proper place for something like this? Or is that just sort of bogus conservative hand-wringing about vice and virtue in the public sphere? Because this is it's as fundamental a change, those two things, the casual drug use and the gambling, that like 20 or 30 years ago, you would have heard Pat Robertson types or other moral majoritarian types talking about the degradation of society, and their concern would be like, you're just going to have casinos all over the place. You'll have people we'll have opium dens in the bars in our local college towns or whatever.
Right.
Like, it's sort of happening, right? Like to a certain extent, like and is that the world that we necessarily want to live in? And who's deciding this for us? Now, to some extent, our representatives are deciding it for us, and that's all well and good. It should be the sort of thing that government has its hands in to some extent. What you don't want is the relationship between these giant companies and the government getting cozy, having it be some sort of an arrangement where one depends on or they mutually depend on each other for their ongoing existence. And I don't know. Maybe I'm worried about nothing at all. I certainly enjoy having access to the gambling apps, so I'm not complaining about it.
Well, so you know, I occasionally toy with the idea of coming up with a much better constitution than what we have now. And like one of my concepts, the working name, I'll come up with a better name later, but there's a designation that would be legal but frowned upon. Right, basically, like gambling, it would fall under that designation, which is basically it's legal, maybe because like you're conceding the fact that the people are going to seek out this sort of stuff, and you don't have the resources to adequately stop it. Right, people are gonna go to some Argentinian website to bet on a thing like that's outside your control.
Right.
Like, what are we doing? Like, it's not worth the effort to try to stop something that people want to do. But it's not, like we don't want to encourage the practice, right? So it's like legal but frowned upon. And I think gambling should fall somewhere there, because it's one thing, back before where it was in Vegas or on your phone as it is now. If you just kept it there, right, on your phone or computer in Vegas or somewhere that accepts these bets, that's fine. You can't have this be like an inducement to watch a show and to watch the game. Basically, the league is so into this is because it's going to drive viewers to the game, right? If you're betting a 6-leg parlay, right, you're going to be somewhat curious as to how those games turned out, right? And so you're going to watch those games or follow them on the ESPN app, but you're going to be engaged somehow, right? So like, it is in the best interest of these companies to create a bunch of degenerate gamblers out there, right? So like, it is in their best business interests to promote a bad social thing, right? Which is just to have a bunch of people who are, maybe most of them are going to be a bunch of bombs, but you'll have one or two who are degenerates who will risk, their mortgage or other things, right? Like, and so like, why are we encouraging this?
Like, if I had an independent income of any sort, it would be within my acceptable range of outcomes to spend a few $100s a year on gambling. Right. Like, that would be my thought process. Like, I'm going to, every year at the start of football season, when I start to care about it, if I don't have anything in the kitty, I'm going to throw a few $100s in there, and that will be my one way that I entertain myself for the next few months.
Right? Yeah, you're not trying to make a living off of your winnings.
I'm not the person that they're really after, right? Like, because you're never going to get enough casual gamers who are willing to just throw a couple of $100s in there every year. I'm not the money, right? I'm in no way have I been profitable to FanDuel basically since I signed up. I've never taken any money out, and I've only ever put money in once, right? It's just lived in that app, and I've suppose in some way, yes, I'm sure they have a horrible pile of my own personal data. Speaking of which, I'm also fascinated by the way that these things, and they must be, the reason that they need to be so closely regulated by third-party institutions is because to some extent, they're going to learn a great deal about me and my certainly about my gambling habits and the sorts of things that I like to do. They could be customizing lines for me that induce me to do things that I wouldn't otherwise be doing. And I would have no way of knowing, right? I don't have two phones going where I have like I know what a good line ought to be over here, and then I'm looking at what the line is over. I'm not that sophisticated a person. I'm not worried about the outcome that much.
So the algorithm could suss out like your fascination for all things Philly sports teams, right? And then they just kind of highlight that.
Who knows what they're doing to fuck with me? But that's sort of a side concern. Again, I'm not necessarily the sort of person that they're going after. They're going after someone who will be dumping significant portions of their disposable income and then maybe their not so disposable income into the app, because that's how it's worked in every single version of this that's ever happened, right? Is that 98% of people are just there hanging out, having a good time, and it's the whales, the 2% of people that these people make all of their money on. And the same goes for the stupid free-to-play games on your phone. Like, most people are just dicking around on it while they're in the waiting room at the doctor's office, and it doesn't fucking matter. Then there are people who are spending $10,000 a month on it, and that's who they're really after.
Right. And
what sort of service are you providing there in the end?
And to the benefit of these gambling companies, they get both, right? Basically, they kind of have this dragnet kind of way. They'll get the people that come and go that are just treading water, and they'll make $1 or $2 out of them. And on top of that, they'll get the degenerates, right? I'm sure they'll have some. I bet you they have internal words or terms for people like that's not positive. You probably have like a negative connotation, like these fucking assholes treading water, wasting my time, $200 nonsense, and then people who are like way, like just degenerates. Like, look at this person, they don't have any money, but every week they're betting on some Cowboys game, and then they're betting a lot. And they're making a lot of money from them. I think at some point there's going to be some sort of market correction somehow, where they're going to say, okay, this is not the approach. We can't have so much attention on gambling, right? Because as soon as the law changed, it just kind of flipped. Everything became about gambling. Like, there are some podcasts you can't even listen to anymore because they don't even talk about the games. They only just kind of talk about it only for the sake of like the line, like, oh, what do you think about that?
Just in terms of the line. I mean, and ESPN just signed a huge sponsorship deal with one of them, right? Like, Barstool had a deal with the Penn Gaming, whatever. Like, Penn Gaming owns some huge percentage of the gambling market, and they've just inked a large deal with ESPN over the next 5 or 10 years or something like that. I don't know. It's probably not great is the bottom line, but I'm enjoying it right now, certainly. Some things have happened, Abe, over the last couple of weeks that we have not discussed. And I think we are underrating them for how fucking hilarious they are. And I'm not sure why. And I wonder, as a preface, has the news gotten so absurd that we've sort of broken, in the way that like Cartman saw Ben Affleck's face and it broke his ability to laugh temporarily. It was the funniest thing he had ever seen, and he didn't think he was ever going to recover his sense of humor.
Cartman, what the hell are you doing? Yeah, you missed him turning around. You guys, something's wrong. What? I think I just saw the funniest thing I'll ever see, and I think I blew a funny fuse. Blew a funny fuse? It was just too much and my sense of humor overloaded. I don't think anything will ever be funny again. Oh, God. What have I done?
Is it possible that the trumpeting has reset our ability to recognize the absurd in a way that is important? And I'll just highlight a couple of things here. A couple of weeks ago, there was a stealth fighter flying, I believe, in South Carolina.
In one of the Carolinas, anyways, yeah.
And the pilot bailed out of the stealth fighter And then the Navy couldn't fucking find it, or the Air Force couldn't fucking find it. The debris field was eventually found outside of Charleston, South Carolina. On Monday was confirmed to be the remains of an F-35 that went missing on Sunday after a reported mishap or malfunction in which the jet's pilot ejected from the craft, according to a Marine Corps official. All right, so this was the Marines. So to be clear, there was a training going on of some sort, or a flight was happening with this F-35, and the pilot ejected his body out of the plane, and then the Marine Corps posted on social media for people to be on the lookout for a missing stealth fighter that was flying on autopilot somewhere in the Carolinas, possibly headed out to sea. That's hilarious, right? Like,
imagine you're the social media arm of whatever this the Marines, and that's the message. We need to crowdsource this. This is the message. You're like, are you fucking kidding me? You want me to post this like to the public?
And the best part of it is that then it immediately generates like a billion of the dumbest people on the internet talking about how I think we know where to look for the missing F-35, and then it's like a picture of Zelensky in Ukraine, like as though what we did was we pretended we're so stupid and incompetent in the U.S. military that in order to sneak a jet over to the Ukrainian war effort, we needed to pretend that a pilot ejected himself from a autopiloted stealth fighter, and then we just lost it. And that was the cover story so that we could get Ukraine a stealth fighter jet.
Right. And then to follow that logic, they blow their own cover story by publicly asking for people to tell them where the plane is. Like, what's the thinking behind that?
Anyway, that didn't... I mean, I know it... I guess it made us something of a splash in the media, and I'm interested to know what the real story is.
Yeah, because I thought whenever there's any these planes, I don't know how much this particular one costs, but it's in the millions, right? These are expensive planes, right? 20,
tens
30,
and tens of millions of dollars. Yeah.
So you have this very expensive plane. They have all of these gadgets, all this technology. Some of them are probably secret to this day. They have no way to there's no notification system that if somebody.
Well, it's a stealth fighter, Abe, and they turned off the transponder so that it couldn't be tracked.
But it is still stealth technology once you eject the human body out of it, it won't trigger something. Even the human body is stealth that is going down.
Apparently, it was malfunctioning. Anyway, it's an absurdity.
A system to we know where the thing is. We do. Other people may not know it, but we know where it is.
Well, no. If you build a back door into the stealth fighter, then the Chinese can sneak into that back door too. Abe, what are you thinking here? Anyway, it's an absurdity that you could see being written in. You remember that? Speaking of bad HBO shows, there was a Tim Robbins HBO vehicle from a few years ago.
Yeah,
it was
one word.
What was it?
It's like one word, but I forget the some word fiasco or some. I forget.
Right, it was like a bad parody show, as I recall, that had maybe one good episode. I think I watched the whole first season. Anyway, it's it's the sort of thing that would be written about.
Sorry, 2 words.
The Brink, right.
Jack Black is also in this for some reason?
Jack Black was in it. That's right. That was the only, sort of redeeming quality of the show, if I recall correctly. I don't know why I'm talking about The Brink, except to say that this ejected stealth fighter pilot, it's a level of farcical absurdity in line with that silly show from a few years ago.
They probably don't have the full story out in public yet, right? I'm sure there's more to it than just they ejected. Why did they eject? I mean, this must have been a training exercise right after in the Carolinas. So what do you need to be stealth for over Colombia?
Right. Who knows? Anyway, eventually I'm sure that there will be some declassified report 15 years from now that explains what happened, but I guess we can't know it right now. All right, so that's one. That was to me, obviously hilarious that didn't get very much play. Lauren Boebert, congresswoman out of Colorado. This one did get plenty of play in the media, but mostly in a moralizing and scolding sort of way, rather than in the like obvious hilarity of the thing that's going on. Oh, by the way, Abe, we have a final.
Oh.
It is 25-11. The Philadelphia Eagles have dethroned the previously undefeated Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And my gambling career can continue.
Look at that.
And I won't have to.
That's impressive. 6-team parlay.
6-team against the spread.
Yeah,
you fucking love to see it.
That's good.
It's not easy. As evidenced by the fact that I've, for like 3 years, done a 6-team parlay every weekend and never hit one before. But anyway, here we are. Good times. Fly, Eagles, fly. Lauren Boebert went to go see Beetlejuice the musical at some performing arts center out there in Colorado. And she took a date with her. She's apparently going through a divorce. And though the divorce is not yet final, she's seeing other people. That other
Back on
people
the market.
happens to be a bar owner who's a registered Democrat, if that sort of thing matters to you. Apparently it did to some people. Lauren Boebert was seeing Beetlejuice the musical, which, to be clear, is a family-friendly sort of event, apparently. I don't know the details of it. I've never seen it. The only interaction I've had with Beetlejuice is the Tim Burton film from 1988 or whatever that was. Not the sort of thing I would show my children anytime soon, if I remember it correctly. But Boebert, as I'm sure anybody listening to this has already heard, was in the audience vaping from a electronic smoking device. Not clear what exactly she was vaping. It's in Denver or Colorado, so it could have been something more than just flavored tobacco.
Oh, like the nuisance we were talking about earlier. Just this.
That's right. She could have been smoking weed for all we know, because it's legal there, although probably frowned upon legal but frowned upon, as you might say.
Yeah.
Vaping, and also getting very clearly groped by her date.
By
Like
the
she's
way.
in. She
Talk about this. This guy has quite the appetite. I mean, why even go out to the theater? He was all over it. I mean, this guy could not be stopped.
Not a one-hand groping situation. He's got both hands all over the goods, and the goods are on full display. Boebert is not shy about showing off the purchases that she's made,
Right.
and the surgery that she's had done. She's well endowed, and all of the bits are out except for the relevant pointy bits, I suppose, are covered. But the guy is going to town up top, while at the same time, Ms. Boebert, Congresswoman Boebert, is having a time of her own in his lap.
Yes.
Now, it's not this has been described in the media as like a hand job situation.
No, I did not.
Which is not a fair way of describing what actually went on, which is just an over the pants groping and rubbing, which is a different sort of thing than an actual sexual act. This is a couple of horned up teenagers in a movie theater type situation.
That was literally the energy, wasn't it? This like watching. It just. I mean, they're like in their 30s, right? But they're.
She is a 36-year-old grandmother. Right. Abe is Ms. Lauren Boebert.
Yeah. But I know that she was reciprocating somewhat, but. Man, the energy on that guy, it was as if he was operating under some sort of time crunch. Like, the time was, like, I've never seen so much energy. Like, my two thoughts when the story came out, one was like... This is
a very Trumpian response to this, by the way. You're analyzing it as like a piece of game tape, and you're very much appreciative of how much effort this guy is putting into his groping technique.
You know, they're both consenting adults, right? So this is no poor behavior. But I mean, poor behavior to the other people.
Abe says, as a man who spent a good bit of time at the club, and and danced with some plus-sized, also consenting adult women. Let me tell you.
I don't know what you're talking about. But my two thoughts when the story came about, one was like Easy Boy, like, oh man, this guy's getting carried away, and two,
right.
I did not know that they recorded people at theaters. Like, this better be just like for performing art stuff and not like AMC. Like,
right.
They don't need to record that sort of stuff. Nothing's happening there.
So you mentioned the recording. Of course, everything is a conspiracy theory. There were immediate conspiracies about, like, she's being set up. This is the deep state striking out against Lauren Boebert. As though, by the way, if anyone isn't a useful idiot out there in the world just going about their fucking day for everyone else to point at
right.
as the fucking moron,
right.
That's Lauren Boebert. Like the idea that Democrats would sincerely work to destroy the career of a woman who is obviously on a very short glide path to destroying her career herself and having the career that she wants, yeah. Which is just to be some obnoxious person in the media, right. or their own personal brand or what have you, seems very silly to me. But I mean, come on, this is nothing to like get on your high horse and get scoldy about. This is hilarious, right. That Lauren Boebert, this fucking like obvious bimbo of the Republic. Sorry, but that's what she is. So
your words.
It's what she's doing. It's the whole brand. It's to be a hot, sort of scoldy Christian mom who everybody she's presenting herself as in this fashion, right? Like, this is not me doing the work here. This is what she's doing. But for her to be this sort of scolding moralistic type, it's not like she's a crazy wag your finger upstanding Christian type or anything like that. But still, there's the enjoyment of the family of the party of family values and all of this stuff. And she's out here at fucking Beetlejuice getting groped and given a handy over the corduroys to the guy sitting next to her because she's fucking wasted, right. and possibly high, right. At Beetlejuice the musical. That's fucking hilarious.
And all of this would have gone unnoticed. Like, this would have been another Saturday night for her had she not been overly obnoxious to the point where she has to be ushered out, right? I mean, this whole thing, right. Is of her own making, and like her denial. I don't think the video came out until she was like, well, they're making that up. I wasn't
vaping. And by the way, the first story that came out was Lauren Boebert was being obnoxious and like singing and dancing and vaping at this musical and had to be asked to leave. Right. And then she's like, no, I didn't do that. That's fake news. And then somebody framed it as like a public records request, which for all I know, I guess this is in some way the media has some rightful legal claim.
There's a public interest.
Right, maybe this theater is taxpayer funded, and it's like the county performing arts center, right. Or something like that. Right. I didn't look into whether or not the public records request was a valid one, but it's hilarious to me that the media was like, "Can we get any records that you might have pertaining to this incident, please?" And then the theater is like, "Well, we have this video," right. And then you look at the video, and it's a full-on sex act, nearly,
by the way,
taking place in public.
I don't even remember seeing anything about the vaping or smokes. All I just saw was grope. Just like
no, the first run of stories was just about the vapes, and then the video comes out. It's like, well, she's vaping, but then also that dude's getting to second base, and she's rounding third, arguably. So good times.
I mean, that sounds like first date, second date. It's got to be past the first date, right? That seems to be a little too involved for a first date. But like, this must be early on in the relationship. This guy, he knows what he was doing, what she was doing, right? So when she's denying it, he must have been like, "Are you out of your fucking mind, lady? Shut up! Don't call attention to this. If they have tapes, we'll be fucked."
Apologize and hope that the video never comes out. You idiot. Anyway, the Boebert thing came, I think, shortly after the first story about this Virginia candidate for State House. Washington Post, September 11th, 2023. Never forget was when this story came out. Susanna Gibson is running in a competitive district with control of the House at stake. Virginia Dem House candidate performed sex online with husband for tips.
Like OnlyFans or something, or what?
So OnlyFans is the one everybody goes to. Apparently, it was this site called Chatterbait, which is it's a portmanteau of the words chat and masturbate. Which
are those two things compatible?
Both, according to I don't want to get into what I'm into or not into too much here on this. This podcast.
I'm not into that, but go ahead, Bob.
But those are two things that both in the way I was raised and
a simpler time, perhaps, but
and the way that I have lived my life for many years, those are not two activities that go together. But that's, I guess, everybody takes all kinds, as they say. But there's this platform called Chatterbait, which is perhaps, if you're not familiar with it intimately yourself, if you see like Netflix or HBO documentaries, I think there's one on Netflix called Hot Girls Wanted, is the documentary about it, and it's about these cam girls, as they're called, who they go on the internet in front of their webcam and they chat with the gathered dude masses there, and then the dudes tip them, like they send them money in the form of tokens, which are like proprietary dollars, basically. Sort of like if you, back in the day, if you went into Athens' famous strip club Toppers.
Famous?
You wouldn't. What's that?
Famous, you say?
I think, yeah, fucking worldwide. Which I only had to go into Toppers once. It was for my buddy's bachelor party. It was the only time, I think, that I ever went into Toppers. And I was uncomfortable the entire time because strip clubs are simply not my scene. But in order to tip the girls at Toppers, you had to get Toppers bucks. I don't know why. I'm sure there's some asinine law that says that you can't actually tip the girls on stage, but if you exchange it for the Toppers bucks, then they exchange that for dollars later. I'm sure it was some fucking ripoff where I paid for $10 of Toppers bucks, but the girls could only get $7 of value out of it or something awful like that, right? I'm sure that was the terrible arrangement that they had to deal with.
Maybe it was a theft prevention thing. You have to go through somebody to get your American dollars back.
Maybe it was a safety thing where you don't want to necessarily have all those dudes in there with all of that cash. So similar to that scheme and the Athens strip clubs where you exchange your dollars for what were effectively fake dollars. Similarly, you give your credit card information to the fucking website, and the website turns your money into tokens, which you then use to tip the girls who are performing various things for your enjoyment. So not just revealing
an article of clothing at a time, they're actually doing things on top?
Apparently, yeah. Oh. So there's they do all sorts of things. Okay. I only know this because of my reading of the Washington Post and my viewing of important documentary films on platforms, family-friendly platforms such as Netflix and HBO, and probably the PBS NewsHour. That's probably where I've gleaned all of this information through the years, is listening to Judy Woodruff explain it to me in detail. As long as we're talking about what are our kinks, as we were earlier, apparently mine is having Judy Woodruff explain it to me in great detail. Anyway, you take the dollars, you turn it into tokens, and then the girls will do various things. There's not like a legal arrangement there. It's not like they're obligated to do the thing, but it's a thing. It's like, if you give me this, I'll do this sexual thing, which will be gratifying to you and your hand in various ways. On Chatterbait, this is one where it's not just girls by themselves. That you can be a person with a partner. Okay. In this case, this was her husband. So they would get on the website there, they would log on, and then other people would log on and watch as they did the sex for the live feed for the camera, and then they would receive compensation in the form of these tokens. And what happened is that that's all well and good. That's certainly legal to some extent or another in most places, I'm sure, which is just you were just there having sex and other people are watching you do it, and they are showing their appreciation for this fact by handing over money. That's all well and good. What's not so good is if you then decide as a person who has put their sex life on the internet for all to see to run for political office in a very purple district, right? Not an ideal way of winning.
I should note, this should make no difference, right? But I am curious, and I'm not making any judgment. Were they doing this because, they're like these sex positive, the hippie types, or were they doing this under some sort of financial strain, right? Again, it should make a difference, but which of the two do they fall under? They weren't hurting for money.
I don't know to what extent they believed this was. I mean, she's Susanna Gibson, a nurse practitioner and mother of 2 young children, running in a highly competitive suburban Richmond district, streamed sex acts on Chatterbait, a platform that says it takes its name from, quote, the act of masturbating while chatting online. Anyway, more than a dozen videos of the couple captured from the Chatterbait stream were archived on one of those sites, Recurbate, which is a site in which people can record these videos and then post them for others to view later, apparently. And some Republican operative got a hold of all of this information, discovered the fact that the 40-year-old candidate for office was doing this and leaked it to the Washington Post. There's been some pushback in very stupid ways, which is like Gibson herself has said this is revenge porn, that somehow this is, which it's not. Like, this is just people found out that you did this publicly available thing, and then they talked about it because of course they did. Because if you're streaming sex on the internet with your husband or anyone else, and then you decide to run for office, somebody's going to have recognized you in some fucking way from doing that thing that you did, and people are going to find out about it, and that shouldn't be surprising to you. And if anything, it suggests, as I heard Pesca say on his show, this betrays a certain lack of strong good judgment on your behalf. Just the idea that, like, not necessarily the poor judgment of doing sex on the internet for other people to then send you money, but to then take it the next step further, where you don't consider the fact that that is probably a disqualifying act in the eyes of enough voters that it means you're going to lose when you do run. I think that does, in fact, suggest a sort of lack of good judgment on her part.
This seems like a very low-level public office position, right? So I don't know what her ultimate ambition is. Like, I don't know if she wants to be governor one day or whatever, but like usually like people will, if you do like something that some people will find objectionable, like drug use, you would put it in a book somewhere, and then like you can point to that book if it comes up. Basically, like you weren't disguising this, like you weren't hiding from it. There's a thing you learn from, you stop doing, blah blah blah, right? So like if she did something similar, like, and she kind of framed it around like that sex positive kind of angle that Dan Savage is big on, and like just say, boom, we give and take, and we share it with the world, and like, you can chat with us and do other things. Like, just talk it up. Like, this is a thing I was cool with. I don't do it anymore.
This is just a form of candidate outreach to my eventual constituency. I'm trying to draw in the non-political crowd who feel disenfranchised by the system and no longer feel like they have a voice in government. I want to be that voice, and this is just how I did outreach to my constituency.
Right, like Captain America said, whatever it takes, right? She's taking that approach. But, if she kind of took ownership of it, like, I guess either like in a book form or a podcast, just some sort of in the before time, before the news broke, and you point to that, she would be fine. But her reaction of saying, mischaracterizing it as some sort of revenge porn, where this was for public consumption. I mean, it was directed towards those people that were giving you the coins. But I mean, come on, you know how the internet works. People will record and do whatever, right? So there was, by you taking that approach, like, it comes across as you have some misgivings about it, right? Just kind of lend credence to whatever misgivings the people who are no longer going to support you have, right? But if you kind of lean into it from the get-go, it would have been like, hey, it's a new day and age. What was that? There was that congresswoman from, like, California, Katie something. She had to, like, resign because of like, just having sex with somebody, right? I think like a staffer. That was a little weird.
That was the it wasn't just somebody. But she was having an affair with an underling in her campaign. Yeah.
Right. But like there, like I think we've kind of moved away. Like if she had from the get-go talked up about like, yeah, this is between consenting, whatever. If she kind of played it as if it's no big deal, it would have kind of came and went. I think her resistance and her reaction, I think, is going to make this be an issue, and she may, I don't know if they even do polls at that level of office, but like I don't know how this is going to shake out.
Right. For what it's worth, the way that the Post framed this, like their hook for it, it says Gibson 40 can be seen in the videos soliciting tips for performing specific acts in apparent violation of Chatterbait's terms and conditions, which say requesting or demanding specific acts for tips may result in a ban from the platform for all parties involved. End quote. It's not how it works. That is that's a reference to the terms and conditions that apply to the dudes on the other end of the screen, not to the models on the front end of the screen. So, and that was something that was pointed out in The Intercept today, but which jumped out to me sort of right off the bat, which is like, how can it be a violation of Chatterbait's terms and conditions when that's the entire business model?
Right.
Like that doesn't make any goddamn sense at all. The entire business model is that you request tokens in order to perform acts, and then you do those things in exchange for those tokens. It doesn't mean that you're not coerced into doing it. It is just the way that the transaction takes place.
Right.
So I didn't understand the Post's angle there. Maybe as The Intercept is insinuating, is like they needed a way to launder this story in a way that made some sense.
I think you're probably right.
So that it's palatable, and as opposed to just being a sort of smear. But it's like, I'm sorry, I don't buy that this is just a political smear. This is newsworthy. It's newsworthy that somebody who wants to serve in the Virginia House of Delegates is an online sex performer. Right. Like that is something that is of it matters. There have been porn stars who have run for office in the past. That's fine. And then you can have the Republicans make their bullshit moralistic points on the back end about, look at the degeneracy of the Democrat Party and what scumbags they are. And that's all fine. But to me, this isn't a story that's been laundered through the mainstream media by Republican operatives. It's just simply a newsworthy event.
Right.
When somebody has attempted to hide their past in some way. And also, like, to some extent, like, I would have been more appreciative of her entire situation if she'd just come out and said like just a completely implausible lie. Like, this is AI pornography. This is not me. This is a deep fake. It's definitely not me. I never had anything to do with it. And this is disgusting that they would even pretend otherwise.
Right. But I think it would be. Do you think it's like a deal breaker for enough voters to make a difference? Like the.
I don't know. This is a district. This is a district that was +3 Youngkin, I believe, and then lost that delegate seat to the Democrats just a year later. Okay. So it's a very easy to flip sort of district. This seems like the sort of thing that is enough to flip a situation in a relatively tight race. And if I were her, I would just fucking drop out. Like, I don't know. I don't know how.
I mean, you might as well just see it through now. Like, there's no advantage of like leaving prematurely. You never know. Sometimes just sticking around, maybe the other person does something worse, and you come out on top. So who knows?
Yeah. Anyway, it's fucking. That's another one. It's like, it's just fucking absurd and hilarious. And also, it won't be. Not that this is the first time, but this will be the. This is a relatively high-profile case. We're going to get to the point where a lot of our politicians are people whose junk we've seen in one form or fashion. Like this is what's coming. This is the camel's nose under the tent, if you will, of seeing nudes of our politicians, and it will be first that we'll have a generation of. We're not sure if these are their nudes or not because it's going to be AI deepfake fucking porn of our elected officials. But like everybody's sending dick pics and their tits to everybody else.
Right.
And this is a point that I've made before that like if we've seen everyone's nude, like there's the line in The Incredibles where if everyone is special, then no one is, right? That if we've seen everyone's nudes, then having seen nudes won't be that big of a deal. This is not a future that I am comfortable with or I'm looking forward to personally, but like this is just the first case of many that's going to be eventually there's going to be a president that we already had a president. We've had a porn star give a detailed description of Donald Trump's penis, right? She gave a cartoonish but also very detailed description of what Donald Trump's penis looks like. We will in our lifetimes and probably within the next 10 or 15 years, vote for a president whose dick we've seen or whose bare chest, if they're a woman, we have seen.
Right.
It's coming.
I imagine a lot of plausible deniability with most dick pics. People aren't adding their face to them, right? So it's like, oh, that could be anybody's dick. But like, you're right. Actually, and it's not only Trump. Wasn't there some recounting of Bill Clinton's dick during his impeachment? Like there was like some talk about it too. So it's not uncommon. And I think what was it? The First Lady Melania. There was some nudes of her. So like I think the normalizing of just nakedness maybe it's a positive development for prudish America.
Sure. Then Gibson should have embraced it. That's what she should have done.
That would have been my advice to her. You got to lean into this. You can't just take that approach and say, yeah, so what? Who doesn't have sex? Get out of here.
Right. All right. Last hilarious thing in the news that I don't think necessarily got treated as hilariously as it should have been. Abe, here's a headline. Canada's House Speaker apologizes after Ukrainian who fought for Nazis was honored. Jewish groups demanded an explanation after Anthony Rota, the Speaker of Canada's House of Commons, introduced a 98-year-old veteran of an SS unit as a hero. So, this is from today, this afternoon. The Ukrainian man sitting in the gallery of Canada's House of Commons was a hero, the Speaker of the House said on Friday, drawing applause from lawmakers, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine, who had just addressed the chamber during his first visit to Ottawa since Russia invaded his country. But several Jewish groups responded with outrage, saying that the man, Yaroslav Hunka, 98, had served in a Nazi unit known as the 14th Waffen Grenadier Division of the SS, which fought alongside Germany during World War II and declared allegiance to Adolf Hitler. On Sunday, Anthony Rota, the Speaker of Canada's House of Commons, issued a written apology, saying that he had subsequently became aware of more information and took full responsibility for my actions.
This is a Veep episode. I mean, this is textbook Veep. Somebody fucked up the research.
In remarks after Mr. Zelensky addressed Canada's Parliament on Friday, Mr. Rota introduced Mr. Hunka as a resident of his district who had fought for Ukrainian independence from Russia and later immigrated to Canada. How dumb do you have to be about, like, how completely historically illiterate do you have to be to not remember that if you were fighting against the Russians in World War II you were not fighting for the good guys, right?
True. That's a good point.
You were, in fact, fighting with the Nazis if you were fighting against the Russians in World War II.
To be fair, no one else in that room objected. It took some survivors.
No, Trudeau fucking stands and applauds too. It's fucking great.
It goes to show you if someone is, this is maybe I'm tipping my my hand here. No one from work listens, but whenever there's a team meeting and I am not involved in whatever's going on, and I have no role to play, so there's no possible question that I need to field, I just tune out. Right? Like, all right, people are talking. It's not about me, about anything I'm doing, so I'm tuning out. So I assume the reason why so many people did nothing or nobody like, oh, that doesn't sound right, is because, somebody else is talking. I can just fucking daydream or think about anything else.
Are we clapping for this guy?
Yeah.
I guess we're clapping for this guy. Let's clap for this guy.
To be fair, I don't know why he's the only one getting shit. Again, you got the president of one country, the prime minister of the other country, all these dignitaries, all these people, no one says anything. Somebody has the same research. This guy was a hero to somebody, I guess not the side we're for, but he was a hero to somebody, and he's like gold. Like, come on.
Trudeau said, it's extremely upsetting that this happened. This thing that happened was me standing up and applauding for a Nazi war hero. The speaker has acknowledged his mistake and has apologized. This is something that is deeply embarrassing to the Parliament of Canada and by extension to all Canadians. He sounds exactly like his South Park version of himself.
By the way, is it possible? Okay, I'm not implying any sort of bad behavior on the part of the people who called them out, right? But there must have been some sort of awareness that there was going to be this event, right? No one thought that maybe we'll get in front of it to save the country the embarrassment, and like. Wouldn't you want
I don't think anybody thought about it. They're like, here's this old guy. We know that he is Ukrainian or something. We know that he was against the Russians or something. So here's his name. Applause.
Somehow still alive. God bless him. Just prop him up. Well, does this old man have anything to say for himself? Like, he's got no defense?
Man, I hope not. I certainly hope he's not expected to defend himself at this point.
Because there's no statute of
98 years
limitations
old.
for these kind of crimes, right? I mean, they're not going to let this slide.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the plan is with Mr. Hunka.
If you're a Nazi and you made it to 98, and some fucking staffer for like the house guy,
somebody calls you up and they're like, "Hey, come down to Parliament for the day. We're gonna celebrate you. We swear. There's this big official proceeding, and we're gonna get the Ukrainian president and the prime minister to stand up and applaud for you." And he believed them. He was like, "Yeah, that sounds about right."
He didn't think it's like a trap. Like sometimes they're like, they're doing a TV giveaway, like the sheriff's department, and they just want to get the people who that's on their list for arrest. Like you would think it's one of these people, one of these situations rather. And nope, he shows up and he basks in the praise. Like I'm sure he's like confused. Like, okay, hero.
I had no idea. I knew that the tide would change eventually on this. I just had to hold out till I was nearly 100 years old. On Friday, this is the statement from Anthony Arota. On Friday, September 22nd, my remarks following the address of the President of Ukraine, I recognized an individual in the gallery. I have subsequently become aware of more information which causes me to regret my decision to do so. I wish to make clear that no one, including fellow parliamentarians and the Ukraine delegation, was aware of my intention or of my remarks before I delivered them. This initiative was entirely my own, the individual in question being from my riding and having been brought to my attention. I particularly want to extend my deepest apologies to Jewish communities in Canada and around the world. I accept full responsibility for my actions.
Somebody told them, you have to eat the whole shit. You have to make it clear. This is entirely your fuck up.
It is unfortunate that it plays right into some of the worst. It's not even fair to call it conspiracy theorizing, but like a lot of the Glenn Greenwald types who are always talking about how it's a bunch of Nazis who like sort of doing the useful idiot thing for Putin, where Putin's line is, we're just trying to restore. We're trying to get rid of all the Nazis in Ukraine. And then the fucking Canadians are like, and we do love a Nazi, don't we? Because they fight the Russians. Like, it seems like the sort of thing that could be Russian disinformation if it hadn't actually happened in the Canadian Parliament with Zelensky on hand, right? Like, it's the sort of thing that the guys who are like what were they, the Cozy Bear or whatever the fuck they call themselves, the Russian disinformation.
Oh yeah.
Is it Cozy? It was something. It was something vaguely gay. Fancy Bear is what it was. Which I have to assume. I'm sure I've made this joke before, that something is lost in translation from the Russian. I can't imagine that there's a bunch of dudes sitting around in the Russian disinformation computer lab, proudly declaring themselves to be Fancy Bear. But who knows? But the assholes in Fancy Bear must be like just smacking themselves in the head, going like, this is too good. How did they manage to do this? Like, was this you, Yuri? How did you pull this off? It's like, no, it wasn't me. This actually fucking happened.
That's why, like, the people think there's a level of sophistication with these things where there is not. Like, you can kind of see the human failing where somebody just did not like do any bit of research. They just kind of took the whole thing. Like, a long time ago, he was finding bad people because they're thinking Russia was always like on the other side, the other side of it, and there's no more thought to it. There's no like big scheme. It's just people doing people things. No,
never assume a big scheme when humanity provides all of the absurdity that we need.
That is, I know the guy took it took all the blame publicly, but the support staff, they're probably getting shit canned, right? I mean, that's like everybody involved in the chain. Like, everybody's getting shit canned.
He's saying that there was no chain. He's saying, this is my guy. I've been introduced to him before.
For public consumption. Really? I mean, that speaks to his competence. Like, if this bullshit sandwich you're eating right now, if it's true, you had no curiosity about, like, you didn't connect the dots. Like, how dumb are you really?
It's an old meme, but the Job Bluth, I've made a terrible mistake. It's so fitting. Like, imagine this guy. He's so pleased with himself. He's going back to the house or whatever. And he's like pouring himself a nice cocktail. He's like, man, got to meet Zelensky. I got the old guy, the round of applause. I did such a good job today. And then he pulls up his fucking phone, and it's like the first email comes in, and then 150 more email comes in. And it's all just talking about how he was celebrating a Nazi on the floor of Parliament.
I wonder what the newsroom treatment would be if Aaron Sorkin ran this episode. Remember years ago where I think it was, let's say, Mandela's funeral, somebody's funeral, some big name in South Africa, and there was the fake sign language guy. Like, there were all these world leaders. I think Obama was there. All the other world leaders that came to kind of say a few words, and the guy next to them is making just bullshit hand gestures, like nonsensical hand gestures. Turns out, like, this very secure event had this very obvious, hole. Like, some evildoer could have just been pretending to be making signs and stab somebody, right? In theory. Between that and this, like, which is the bigger fuck up? Like, do you think that this takes the cake?
Yeah, this is way. I mean, that was also hilarious. Although apparently I've read things about that. There's not a good like international clearinghouse for these people apparently, because there's like the sign language interpretation is sort of it's much more art than it is science anyway. Because you've got American Sign Language, which is one thing. Yeah. But then there's there's not exactly a good international way of dealing with the problem.
Oh, that's
apparently.
interesting. So that explains, I guess, that kind of explains now, like why, like whenever there's like a music, like when I went to Coachella one of the years, they had like a sign language person for like the Red Hot Chili Peppers or something, and the person was going on and on. I'm like, I don't know if this is actually all.
There's way more tongue in this version of sign language when it's the Red Hot Chili Peppers than.
So there is
Also,
some artistic license.
what more information is gained from the sign language interpretation of Anthony Kiedis' lyrics that is not fully expressed by that writhing weirdo on stage as he dances and jumps and contorts his body in interesting and endearing ways for some of us.
I'm not sure.
One last thing here, since Lori's not here to hustle me along here, I'll do what I want to do. I was listening to NPR, and I'm sure it's probably just my Google News feed and not necessarily everyone else's. But Talking Heads is a band from the late 70s and early 80s. One of my favorite bands. I believe they're the first or second greatest band of the 80s.
Oh, wow.
And I say that recognizing that they're not strictly an 80s band. But to me, if you're thinking of the 1980s, they sort of, in the same way that the Cars are not strictly speaking an 80s band because they started in the late 70s, they're just of the 80s in a way that matters. So my emotional truth is that the two greatest bands of the 1980s are the Cars and Talking Heads, and I will not be dissuaded from that fact.
Better than Hall & Oates. Wow, look at that.
Yes, a short step above Hall & Oates. Anyway, my Google News feed this week has been overflowing with articles and interviews with Talking Heads because they have a large format release of their seminal rock and roll documentary, concert documentary called Stop Making Sense, which I believe first debuted in 1984. Is one of the greatest concert albums ever put together. It was an amalgamation of three different concerts edited together and has long been one of my favorite live albums that I've ever owned. It's fucking fantastic.
Oh, no kidding. They are AMC is going to be showing that.
Yes. So apparently it made a whole bunch of money. It sold out all of its IMAX availability its first week in release and set some sort of record. I didn't read the full story on that, but it set some sort of record for a concert film in the IMAX format, which is cool. I highly recommend it, Mr. You've got your AMC pass. You should go see it. It's
actually,
fucking
I'm
great.
looking at the show times, and on occasion, if it's like a special event kind of thing, it's excluded from the subscription. But this is not.
Right.
This is part of the thing.
Oh, well, good.
So, yeah.
You should definitely go see it. It's absolutely fucking fantastic. Anyway, Talking Heads, one of my favorite bands. I think arguably one of the best bands of the 1980s. David Byrne is the chief Talking Head. He is the front man. He was the lyricist and the guy out front doing all this silly dancing and singing the silly songs. They had an acrimonious breakup because after going on this incredible run of albums for a little bit less than a decade, they sort of broke up temporarily, and then in like 1991 or something, he's being interviewed, and he says, "Yeah, I guess we're broken up. We're not a thing anymore." And he was apparently a real pain in the ass to work with.
Okay.
He's a weirdo. He's on the somewhere on the spectrum, the autism spectrum, whether it's Asperger's or autism or something like that. A very unique voice and force in popular music, and someone who apparently it was very difficult to collaborate with. And so after they burned short and burned the candle at both ends as a band, and they've been not seen together much except for when they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in like 2003 or 2005 or something like that. And then now with the re-release of Stop Making Sense, they're doing the media tour. Okay. So they were on your favorite show, the CBS Sunday Morning show.
Nice.
This Sunday, I saw that interview. I've listened to them on this interview with Steve Inskeep. And without playing a clip necessarily from the CBS This Morning interview, there's a little bit of what to me feels like unfortunate revisionism about what it was like to be Talking Heads and to create the music that they created in the 70s and the 80s. And it's just this notion that David, because he was so difficult to work with, the question that gets asked is, do you wish that you had been an easier person to work with back in the day? Do you have regrets about the way that you had this interaction with the band? Because the band obviously is a very painful thing for them to have to deal with this guy. Maybe it started out in a very positive way only, but he's an exacting individual with a very clear view of the thing that he wants. And apparently that became difficult to work with, to the point where eventually he just stopped working with them entirely. And he sort of acknowledges that in the CBS interview to an extent. He's like, at the same time that I wish that I wasn't such a difficult person, I'm not sure that the music could have been made any other way, right? Like, I am who I am. The difficulty or relative ease notwithstanding, it produced the art that it produced, and I have no regrets about that. Certainly, like he's still, to this day, he's got on Max, on HBO. There's this big David Byrne. I forget what the name of the production is.
That's right. That's the one that I saw. That was pretty good. Was it like a Broadway thing that turned into?
Right. There was a Broadway show that he put together based on a whole bunch of Talking Heads music through the years, and a lot of the same visuals and the same sort of feeling, certainly, of it. Anyway, I don't know. There's not any big conversation to be had about it, but we have this tendency to want, I think especially some many years later, to express contrition or regret about the way that we once were, because we were young and stupid and we didn't know how to behave in the world yet, and now we're older and wiser and more mature, and wouldn't it have been better if we had known then what we know now? Right. That old sentiment. Maybe we would have been better human beings to each other. To which I say, what fucking good is being better human beings to each other if the result of having been, to some extent, awful human beings to each other was this incredible output of meaningful artistic expression that fucking matters some 40 years later, or 45 years later in some cases? Like, yeah, I get it. Interpersonally, it's awkward to have to sit here in this interview chair and talk about the way in which I was a complete asshole to this person, but gaze upon the results and fucking despair, because it would be a real bummer if this art did not exist simply because I wanted to get along better with the people in the room. And to some extent, I sort of cringe at watching David Byrne have to apologize for his former self. When, like, to some extent, that's none of my business, right? Like, it's right. Their interpersonal issues are absolutely none of my business. It has nothing to do with me. All I care about is the art and the feeling and the commentary that art was making on the world at the time. And to some extent, their interpersonal relationships don't matter, and whatever personal growth they've achieved through the years, I'm happy for them, I suppose, but I think that there should be no shame around any of those feelings.
I think on the whole, you are correct. I do wonder what the point of this exercise is. Like, what is it that, because this is not a question that only appeared once. So this is a common thing where people point to, like, hey, you're kind of a dick back then, or you did a thing that didn't work out. Would you go back and change it? I don't know what itch they're trying to satisfy with that. Like, what would be the right answer to that question? I never understood that, because you can't undo the thing, right? And all it does is it kind of puts people in this weird position to where, which I also don't think it is that helpful, which is you're kind of almost making your bad behavior be inextricable from the art that you created, and that's not necessarily true. I mean, it
Right,
could
you
be
don't
true.
want to. You're justifying the bad behavior because of the great art that was produced, and then it becomes a question of a referendum on the art. Well, is the art worth it if it turns out you were an asshole?
Right.
And it's like, well, to some extent, if you're just sort of an antisocial weirdo who's a bit autistic on the spectrum somewhere and had trouble expressing your emotions, then yeah, maybe it is fucking worth it because you are who you are.
But also,
if you abandon your fucking children, or you can't separate the art from the guy who beats his wife, and he's like, well, yeah, I beat up my wife, but that was just one way of expressing myself
Right.
in the same way that I was expressing myself in the studio, right? Like, that's obviously shitty in an entirely different way, and that's not the argument that I'm making at all.
Right. No, that's true. And again, and I don't understand. You're kind of almost inviting that when you try to link those two together. I always think the art is the art. However it came about, it kind of came about in a stressful environment where you're the victim of the thing, right? Like something is happening to you and you're responding in this creative way, and the art is the art. Or you're an asshole and the art is the art, right? So like that can be judged on its own. Like whether you like the music or whatever art it is, judge it on that. The behavior, I always think like every day is kind of like a referendum on yesterday's behavior, right? So like if he was behaving the same way, you have your answer. And if he's changed course since then, you also have your answer, right? Obviously, he doesn't approve of those behaviors because he corrected at some point
Right.
to say this is not working, right? So that has been addressed. You can't undo a thing, right? So that's a ridiculous thing to contemplate. So like what, again, going back to my question, what is the utility of this question? Like what is it that they're trying to tease out from an artist? Just to say like, I don't agree with bad behavior. I mean, like that's...
I think a lot of it is just they want people to acknowledge that they were dumb young kids, and I think that it's like that's the price of admission for a lot of this stuff. There's a big appetite in the culture for for all of the lauding that we do, for the fetishization that we have of youth. I think that we still do get a great big kick out of getting people to admit that the things that they stridently believed when they were fucking teenagers or 20-somethings or whatever was fucking nonsense, right? Like that's an important thing that we demand of old people, is to say the things that I believed when I was younger, I was too strident and silly, and I shouldn't have been that way then. I think there's a little bit of that going on, too.
Okay, maybe that's what it is.
And I say that in part because of, at the very end of this interview that they gave to Morning Edition, Steve Inskeep, the fucking smarm machine that is Steve Inskeep, who I don't care for, they're talking about a song, which is a great song. I will play a clip here. It's a song called Don't Worry About the Government.
I see the clouds that move across the sky. I see the wind that moves the clouds away. It moves the clouds over by the building. I pick the building that I want to live in. I smell the pine trees and the beeches in the woods. I see the pine cones that fall by the highway. That's the highway that goes to the building. I pick the building that I want to live in. It's over there, it's over there. My building has every convenience. It's gonna make life easy for me. It's gonna be easy to get things done. I will relax along with my loved ones.
All right, so far be it from me to decide what a song is about or not about for everyone else, right? That's not my job. I can't say what a song objectively or definitively means. All I can do is take it in, mix it around with all of my other influences and the things that I believe about the world or want to believe about the world, and interpret it as best I can. My understanding of Talking Heads music, especially early Talking Heads music, and that song happens to come from Talking Heads 77, is it's a criticism of consumerist culture. It's a great deal of skepticism about the world that they inhabit and the things that they're supposed to want. He is a sort of angsty, disenfranchised figure is the way that I think of David Byrne at this time. Not someone who's a fucking yuppie, right? Like, he's not a fucking yuppie. And I'm going to play a clip. Steve Inskeep, who is a fucking yuppie, by the way. I'm going to play this clip from the end of the short 6-minute interview that they did on Morning Edition a couple days ago.
What's the song about? My building has every convenience.
Oh, don't worry about the government.
David came up with that, and I don't think anybody else would have come up with that.
My building has every convenience. It's gonna make life easy for me.
I mean, what was on your mind when you started writing about a building with every convenience?
I thought, wouldn't we like to live in an apartment that had a bathroom in the apartment, which we didn't have at the time?
We were living, Tina and David and I were living in a loft on Christie Street. We moved there in 1974.
The city's falling apart all around you.
Yeah, and now there's a Whole Foods nearby, but we didn't have that then. We had homeless people, and we had very inexpensive prostitutes. We would hear gunfire and congas. It was like, It was not a building that had every convenience.
But if you come visit, I'll put down what I'm doing. My friends are important.
It was a song about what they aspired to in the years before they shot to fame. Stop Making Sense, the concert film with talking heads, is on IMAX screens beginning today.
Don't you worry about me.
I cannot imagine hearing that song for my entire life and coming to the conclusion that Steve Inskeep comes to,
Right.
which is that this is a song about aspiring to having a really nice place to live. Now, granted, he's working with what the band is giving him in this interview, right? So he asks David Byrne what he was talking about, and David Byrne gamely says, like, we lived in a fucking dump, and so I was imagining not having to live in such a fucking dump. And then the other guy, who's not nearly as interesting a person, David Byrne, is the only reason that Talking Heads matters is because David Byrne. Right. There's no getting around it. You go listen to Tom Tom Club, which is a side project that 2 members of Talking Heads did when David Byrne was fucking off doing solo work. And Tom Tom Club is it's a trifle. It's meaningless. It sounds sort of the similar jangly acoustic guitar thing is going on there, but that's it. Like there's the shadow of what Talking Heads could be is what Tom Tom Club sounded like. You don't fucking matter.
I suspect that the rest of the band has come to terms with that reality, right? By now, I don't think they.
Yes, yes. Tom Tom Club does not matter. Anything that they did on their own, doesn't fucking matter. Talking Heads was the thing. Now, I'm not saying it's only David Byrne, right? There's this weird. I've talked about this before, probably, but like weird magic happens when the certain right people are in a room together, right? It doesn't mean that they all get along. In fact, I think more often than not, it means that they aren't getting along. Fucking Pink Floyd hated each other, right? They fucking despised each other. They made some of the greatest rock and roll of all time. Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, I think, spent a lot of time in the 60s and 70s not particularly being the best of friends. This is common. The Beatles, they fucking hated each other for large stretches of time. The Smashing Pumpkins, highly dysfunctional band. Doesn't matter. The right people get into a room together and fucking magic can happen. And I think that that's a real phenomenon. It's fucking crass and gross and sad to listen to David Byrne have that song and his life's work reduced by Steve Inskeep to really they just wanted more money. Like that, what Talking Heads was really doing there, this youthful indiscretion, this when they were in the late 70s and early 80s, and they were looking around them, and what appeared to be a criticism of the world around them was actually actually just, man, it would be nice if we had better carpet and bathrooms and a nicer place to live. And like, to me, if it's true, it's super fucking sad. And if it's not true, and I'm sad for the fact that David Byrne has to sit there and fucking listen to it during this press tour. Like, what a bummer to have to listen to people reduce everything that you worked for your entire life, your entire artistic output, and be like, yeah, well, I think that what's really going on here is you were jealous of the yuppies who had fucking money.
I wonder if artists over the years with dealing with the media and the types of questions, because sometimes they'll get high quality questions and sometimes not as many of those. I wonder if they have like I'll meet the interviewer at the level that they're at. So like if they give me some bullshit, I will respond in kind. And if they have some sort of like insight into a song, if they're like actually fans, I can engage with them at that level. And so like once they get a question like that, they're like, oh, this is gonna be a bullshit thing, and they have this queued up, like this answer.
Right. Well, no wonder David Byrne hated his fucking bandmates. His bandmate is like, oh, what the fuck lyrics were you even talking about, David? What a building? Who's even like you've lived with this song in your head for 45 years. You've known the guy who wrote it your entire life since then, and your answer, your reaction to thinking about that song is, oh, that fucking David Byrne's a real weirdo, isn't he? It's like, no wonder David Byrne fucking hated your ass, you stupid asshole.
His animosity towards the other members is noteworthy, Bob. What is your problem with it?
Highly justified, obviously. I'm sorry. I have long taken the position that meaningful artistic output carries with it a certain degree of, at the very least, you don't have to be an asshole, but there's an arrogance to the belief that you have something to say that anyone else needs to hear, right? That is fundamental to our project here, if nothing else, right? There must be, in my head, and to some smaller extent in yours, you're just a go-along guy. I recognize that. You're here for the laughs as much as anything else.
Let the record show.
But right. But to some extent, it requires a great deal of self-regard to one extent or another for me to have this ongoing vanity project of putting out a stupid podcast, right? I think that goes for anybody who thinks that what they have to say is worth being listened to, or at least being heard, is you have to carry with you a certain degree of perhaps unearned arrogance. And when you see it in people who are worthy of it, who live up to it, it's fine, right? If David Byrne is sort of a pain in the ass, I think it's on balance worth it. For some other, if it turns out that like Dean Koontz is a real fucking prick, like it's less okay, right? Or if Bret Michaels turns out to be a real shit eater,
well, that would be on brand, probably, right?
Right, he probably is. But if he doesn't have some degree of like self-awareness about like playing the part, then yeah, I would hate him a great deal more. And I don't know anything about the person. I don't know why he's top of mind at the moment. Why is he top of mind? Why was he in the news?
Bring his name up. He was on some show or his name came up maybe on last week's episode.
No, I had a screenshot of a Bret Michaels news item, and I can't remember why. Now I've got to look that up.
Because I remember this guy still has was it like your exercise regimen, and he showed up?
Oh, that's right. That's amazing. It was an ad in my exercise app.
That's right.
There we go. It was an ad in Bret Michaels Parti-Gras 2023. Meet Bret this summer on the Parti-Gras. Package is available, and then you have to click on the app to see what the fuck's going on there. It's like, yeah, you've really figured me out here, you exercise app. I'm doing this fucking hour of push-ups in order that my body can be in such phenomenal shape that I'm willing to go spend money to hang out with Bret Michaels at Parti-Gras 2023.
By the way, I mean, this is besides the point, but Parti-Gras, I imagine, is a play on words on the Mardi Gras, right? The Fat Tuesday, with the whole Catholic
Yeah,
thing.
well past Mardi Gras 2023. Yeah.
Right. So Parti-Gras, it's weird that they have this Parti-Gras in the summer. Like, you think it would have it timed around the goofy Mardi Gras, but I don't know. I'm not the one
Yeah,
planning.
you would think, but not Brett Michaels. Fucking Brett Michaels does not wait for Mardi Gras to come to him. Brett Michaels brings Parti Gras to the rest of us whenever he fucking feels like it with his fucking bandana and his tan. You've been listening to Cast Iron Brains, a podcast with Bob and Abe. Find the show on the internet, wherever you find your podcasts, and at brainiron.com, castironbrains.com. Head on over to tetramermusic.com, Tetramer music.com for more from Mark Gillig, who is the wonderful person who composed our opening and closing themes. Abe, I'm on my way to West Philadelphia.
Oh, look at that.
This weekend, we're going to my brother's wedding. He's getting married to Dre. It's going to be a good time. It's not actually west. It's west of Philadelphia.
Okay.
But I think it's kind of funny to imagine that we're going to the place where the Fresh Prince came from before he moved out to Beverly Hills.
I do wonder if
for this wedding.
Has West Philadelphia like gentrified? You should look into it. Maybe it's not that.
I don't know. My brother, he went to Temple up there, and I know that some parts of Philadelphia have turned themselves around, but certainly not all of them.
Right.
It's not a great time in the entire city. But anyway, I won't be making it to the movies this weekend, obviously because of the wedding. But you single, unattached bachelor that you are, you can go to the movies whenever you want. Did you make it to the movie? There's nothing good that I saw coming out.
Slim pickings. This is a rough stretch, although it's about to come to an end because there are some good movies in October, like the Killers of the Flower Moon. I'm going to read the book before I watch the movie. So there's some good movies coming up. But I went.
That's the Scorsese epic, right, with Leo.
Leo, a 3-hour and 30-minute runtime. Like, this is not even just 3 hours, 3.5. It's a ridiculous runtime. We'll see.
This isn't fucking Netflix anymore, there, Marty. What are you doing, man?
But anything with Marty is good with me. So I went to go see Dumb Money. This came out last week.
Dumb Money. Oh, this is about the GameStop.
Stock. Right. So basically, this was the GameStop. Basically, this is a ripped from the headlines movie. Usually, they'll have ripped from the headlines shows, like for Law and Order. They'll somebody gets stabbed in New York, and they make an episode out of it. This had happened 3 years ago.
Does it center the guy who was sort of behind the whole thing, who ended up making like $40 million on his GameStop trades?
Yeah, the point of view, the vantage point is basically this is through the eyes of like the main guy who's played by Paul Dano, who I'll get to in a second, and then like some other like just people who saw his diamond hand stuff on Twitter and Reddit. Like there was a nurse, there was a college student.
His handle on Reddit, I believe, is Roaring Kitty.
Yeah,
I don't
Roaring
remember
Kitty.
the guy's name.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they also show the rich schmucks. Seth Rogen plays one of them, and then some other people play some others. Where basically, they just kind of just talk about everything that happened over the course of 6 months. And it's serviceable movie. It's entertaining enough. Like it would be something that you would turn on a HBO or Netflix. Like it's a good that kind of movie. It kind of hits all the main points, and it happened so recently that I remember all of the stuff that just happened. But I will say, I'm watching this movie. My absent-minded thought was, I see Paul Dano. He's in most of the movie. It's just him and other people. And every time I see him, like he was in the Batman not too long ago, I'm like, oh, this guy, Paul Dano. He's gonna have a great career, right? Like, and I realized I've been saying this for 16 years because I went back to look. He was in There Will Be Blood.
Right. He was very good in that movie.
Solid work in There Will Be Blood. He was just in his 20s back then. But I just thought, oh boy, this guy, you can plug him in anywhere.
He is way too weird a looking dude to have a huge career, Abe. That's a very strange looking human being.
And there's the problem. So I was thinking, okay, why hasn't this guy the whole time I'm watching the movie? Because again, this is a story everybody knows, so you don't need to pay attention for every scene, right? It's just a goofy movie. But I'm thinking, why hasn't this guy made it big? And then in the movie, I don't know if this is true to life. I don't know if this aspect of Roaring Kitty is true, but in the movie, they show him like doing a little physical exercise. He's kind of running around the track, right? And we are led to believe that he is trying to get at a 4-minute mile, right? A 4-minute mile, which is
very impressive
very
number.
fast. Not until that Bannister guy broke the record. Nobody could do it, and more people have done it since. But it's a very fast pace to maintain, a mile run. So I'm looking at this guy, and I'm like, I just don't buy that he could do. I mean, 6-minute mile, yes, but there's no way this. Right. And I think I realized that's like he had like a very limited range as far as what he couldn't have played the Batman guy. He has to be the idiot.
No, he's got a big, stupid, doughy sort of face. Like he's a big sort of.
Actually, this is unfair to him because not only did I balk at the 4-minute mile scene, but also like the Shailene Woodley is his wife. I'm like, oh, come on, this guy is getting carried away. Is he part of the casting? He gets like a unreasonably attractive person as his spouse.
Yeah.
Very unfair.
No, he's not
guy.
a leading. He's a very good. Yeah. He's a very good actor. He's not going to be a leading man type, certainly.
Well, the moment has passed, but it was a serviceable movie.
Well, good. I remain fascinated by that. I think it's one of the more interesting stories about sort of the world of high finance that can possibly exist, and I still don't think that we've gotten the whole situation.
What's weird is, I mean, they did kind of leave it up to like he, the Seth Rogen guy was the one that was in a bad spot because the way it's set up. I'm not like a stock person, but the way it was set up is like. They took certain actions that if there was like unlimited potential for exposure, right? Like they could have, he could have owed like all the money in the world eventually. If everybody just stayed to what they were doing, he could have lost a lot more than what he put in. He would have been like ruined. And in the movie, Robin Hood somehow decides to like prevent people from buying anymore, and all they could do is sell. To kind of get these people,
right? Yeah, that happened. That absolutely happened, so and it's not clear exactly why those decisions were made or from where. Because the fact of the matter is that who exactly owns Robin Hood isn't even necessarily clear, and it seems to be a case of some Robin Hood is the front of a sort of more standard financial institution, and they're not this. I mean, they call themselves fucking Robin Hood, right? I mean, the whole notion is that they're giving the power of buying into the stock market to the everyday dummy who's sitting at home on his phone.
They made a meal out of that in the movie. These fucking assholes.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. But the question of who's actually making those sorts of decisions about all of a sudden you're not permitted to buy any more of these certain stocks, you're only permitted to sell them is very strange, right? And the sort of thing that like the SEC and other regulatory authorities should be looking into and getting to the bottom of. And it's not clear that they ever did.
In this part, I forgot. I mean, this is only a couple years ago. I forget a lot of things. This is a recurring theme in my life. But the Paul Dano guy, to demonstrate his commitment to this cause, he would, on the Reddit page, show that he's still invested, right? So basically, like, and that kind of galvanized everybody, and that gave everybody the confidence to also get in on it, right? And so at the same time as Robinhood, just for some reason, changed their policy to where you could only sell, the Reddit page was taken down, or it was closed. So basically, the people who were counting on to see, okay, he's still in, I'm still in, we're still in, right? Diamond hands, blah, 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 blah. Basically, that kind of created this prisoner's dilemma kind of thing where you have not all the information. All you know is that you can't see what other people are doing. You're limited from buying some more. And so you're thinking the worst. Like, my position is getting weaker and weaker, right, without any more information. So I'm going to sell wherever I'm at, and at least I can salvage whatever money that I want, right? So basically, which is what they were kind of trying to get to people to do. And so, like, those two things sound, I mean, the way they presented it in the movie is like, that had to have been coordinated, right? Because basically
Right.
it accomplishes what they wanted to happen, right? For people to sell it off. And so that's, the movie didn't get to the bottom of it because you can't prove all this, but they were kind of hinting that there was some sort of backroom arrangement.
Right, because there were concerns that this sort of activity done enough times by enough people could ruin the entire
Right.
the entire global financial situation.
Right.
That if you are able to act in concert with hundreds of thousands or millions of your fellow citizens to basically find where Goldman Sachs and these other massive financial institutions have placed their bets, and then simply stand in opposition to those bets, that the way that there are functions in the market that allow you, if you are acting in solidarity with other people, to sort, as you're saying, the amount of money that they can lose, that they could hemorrhage, is infinite. Whereas you're as long as you are not doing the same thing that they're doing, you stand to profit.
It is like a perfect
handsomely.
storm. You're right, yeah. And that's what
But
happened.
anyway, it's a really interesting story. I don't know, again, if I look forward to seeing this movie at some point on the streamers. I suspect that there's a much bigger and more interesting story to tell than Paul Dano, Seth Green movie is likely to spell out.
Rogen.
Oh, Seth Rogen. Sorry, that changes my calculus entirely. Yeah.
I mean, this movie probably didn't do a lot in the theater. They're doing a slow rollout, but I'm sure it'll be on whichever streamer sometime in October.
Right. Let's see. I don't think we watched much of anything. We just watched football. There was an awful lot of good football this weekend.
Yeah, there was. The Notre Dame game kind of ended in exciting fashion, although I didn't realize until after the fact, like a lot of other people, the Notre Dame defense did not field their full complement of players. They had
Yeah, I missed that as well. Apparently they only had 10 out there for the final push, that last yard. I'm not sure it ultimately mattered.
Yeah, but the funniest part, I mean, first of all, I had no idea that Lou Holtz was still alive. He did a little bit for College Game Day earlier in the day, and he, I guess, said something that did not please the head coach for Ohio State.
He did the. You'll recall, or perhaps not, but back in the day, Pat Dye, who used to be an Auburn coach and was a Georgia alum, played football at Georgia. He was a super old man by the time I became a Georgia fan. He said that Georgia's not man enough to beat Auburn in the lead up to some big, I forget which year it was, but it was sometime in the mid 2000s, I think. And of course, that becomes locker room material, and then the T-shirts about, because of course everybody prints a T-shirt after every goddamn game, and so the T-shirt that you would see all over Athens for years afterwards was just the score of that Georgia Auburn game. It must have been in the SEC championship, one of the years that Georgia played Auburn in the SEC title game, and it just said "man enough," and then the score from that game. Which, it's good. That's the sort of thing. But Lou Holtz did the same thing, where he's like, I don't think under Coach Ryan O'Day, or whatever the fat Greg Maddux looking guy is who coaches for Ohio State, he sort of looks like he does, doesn't he? I'm not wrong. Sort of looks like an angry fat Greg Maddux. He said that they weren't tough enough to to come into Notre Dame and win a big game or something like that, right?
Yeah. And by the skin of his teeth, he wins, and he immediately goes to that. It's not like it was like they won comfortably. Eat shit, old man. Right. You barely won. Come on, settle down.
And I don't like it when Ohio State wins things. Obviously, that's not to my preference. But I will say this was a day where I was rooting, and plausibly you could have seen a scenario. Now, it didn't work out this way, but early in the day at noon, you had a nooner at Clemson.
The FSU game,
with FSU, right? So to me, that was an obvious, I thought FSU was going to fucking stomp them. Now, as it turns out, they didn't stomp them, but it did end in heartbreaking fashion. for those awful Clemson people, where the like 30-year-old kicker who was about to take a job
right.
on Wall
They
Street
brought him back.
comes back. He comes back. One last hurrah because Dabo needed a kicker, and he comes back and he shanks
Holy
the game-winning kick at
What
the
a
end.
shank. And this is not, a gay, from the Colts kicker, the 50-plus yards, that happened on Sunday. This was like a
Right.
gimme. Like
That was not a derogatory statement by
Matt
A, by the way. It's
Gay,
just
the place kicker for the
it's
Colts.
his name, right?
Kicked it down the middle for the win. But like the Clemson kicker, who they did mention, like, he was going to go on like Wall Street or he had some bright future. And old Dabo was like, we got to come back, bringing the band back together. We need what are you going to do this year anyways? What are you talking about? He brings him back,
Right.
and what a shank. What a shank.
Anyway, so we have the nooner, and I thought, really good chance that there's going to be a bunch of sad Clemson people in that stadium, right? And this is what I root for in college football. Is the ideal scenario is that large 100,000 people full stadiums of people that I generally don't care for will be sad at the end of the game. This is the ideal outcome of a college football game. I thought we were going to get a sad Clemson stadium followed by a sad Alabama stadium because Alabama was home against Ole Miss.
right.
And I really felt good about old Lance Kiffin going into Bryant-Denny Stadium there and getting a win in Tuscaloosa. Turned out not to be right. Ole Miss really shit the bed and let me down. But then later in the night, I wasn't rooting for Ohio State, the best obvious outcome is for a stadium full of Notre Dame people to be sad at the end of the night. That's what you hope for, and that's what I got ultimately. So 2 out of 3 ain't bad in that regard.
Also,
And it was
Notre Dame, stop it with the Oregon colors. Just wear your normal colors.
Yeah, the color. This is classic old man complaining about shit. But I caught a glimpse of the Rams playing tonight while I was trying to watch the Eagles, and the Rams were in just bright blue leotards.
Oh,
Like, what are you doing?
yeah.
Wear normal goddamn clothes or uniforms. We have one color for the pant and one color for the top. That's what a uniform looks like, not the jammies. You look ridiculous out there. But yeah. Really fun weekend of college football. Probably for the first time has there been a situation this year where it's like, man, I don't know which game to watch. There's like 6 games on right now. That would be really fun to watch. And also, Dion, Coach Prime, gets his ass kicked out there in Oregon.
Destroyed. Yeah, no, this was the best slate of games for Saturday. I'm not sure if there'll be. I'm sure there's usually like one more weekend like this, like in October, November, before the end.
And then the NFL was fun, too. I didn't watch really anything. I just placed my bets and then went about my life. But I tuned in late to catch some highlights, and I look at my phone, and it says that Miami has scored 70 points. And I thought, that can't be right. That must be some sort of mistake. But no, they beat Denver 70-20.
Over 700 total yards. They could have tied the record, but they just kind of...
They could have beaten the record had they tried. I think they still had like 6 minutes to go when they got the ball back and they moved it handily down the field. They easily could have scored an 11th touchdown, but their coach was like, he said something in the interview afterwards about karma. He's like, we don't want to be that sort of team. He's like, man, you put up 700 yards and 70 points and you're worried about karma? That's Sean Payton over there. Sean Payton is a bastard, and it is totally fine. Like you're confused about karma because this is karma coming back for Sean Payton. This doesn't concern you, Mr. Coach of the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
Get your fucking points. This is about Sean Payton's karma, not yours.
Very tough start for Sean Payton, who talked a lot of shit about the former coach who was terrible, and now he's also terrible. Like, what was the...
fantastic.
And now, like, the shit bowl is coming up this weekend. The putrid Broncos versus the putrid Bears, who also got, like, destroyed by the Chiefs. Like, it's going to be a rough watch this upcoming weekend.
The Russell Wilson contract is not looking any better, is it? Anyway, we are, as I said, we're off to Philadelphia this weekend for the wedding between the Andrew and the lovely Dre. Should be a good time, but we will be back to record fresh next Monday, hopefully. We're also going to see on Sunday. We have a crazy weekend. So we have Thursday, the drive up, rehearsal, etc. Friday is the wedding. Saturday, we're hanging out and doing post-wedding family activities. We drive back Sunday. Sunday, we have to go to a Dropkick Murphys concert. We have to, Lori. Well, I mean, have to, because like for some reason, we thought we were buying tickets for a Monday concert, and it's like it wasn't necessarily connected to our weekend away that we would be back and then ready to go to a Monday night concert. It's going to be the kids' first concert, which is like Dropkick Murphys it's a funny first concert, right. I think, to bring our children to. But it should be a lot of fun. But like we're going to get in the car on Sunday morning, drive our asses 5 hours home from Philadelphia, and then have to like unload the car and then go right back out to a concert. I guess it's going to be a little bit silly. We're going to be a little bit punch drunk, sort of generally tired of each other probably. But whatever. We're going to go out. We're going to have a good time. You're going to see the concert on Sunday. And then hopefully we'll be back to record next Monday night.
Should be fun. There'll be
good times.
The second debate is going to be.
That's right. The second Republican debate is Wednesday evening, I believe. Correct. And Donald Trump will not be there.
Why would he? I mean, he gained how many points since the last one?
That's right. He doesn't show up and he goes up in the polls. Anyway, you got anything else for us tonight, Abe?
Nope.
Well, I guess that's all we've got for tonight then, and we'll talk to you next time.
Later. That will get people engaged, and it's kind of like that. Show me the incentives, I'll show you the outcomes. These companies just want people to be on the site, right? So whatever,
right.
What watch time or whatever metric they're using, they want you to stay on longer. And so, like, these are the ways that people stick around longer. People don't go into rabbit holes over some nonsense, right? Like what's the, I don't know, something simple, like you just look up and just move on. But if it's like some sort of violation of like, look at this evil fascist, and you're against that,
right.
You're going to be on that side longer. And that's basically what they're just pushing.
But everything's going to be fine, right, Abe?
Yes.
Isn't that your,
yeah, I mean,
that's your general...
This is the digestion process, Like, people are trying to figure out... A lot of this, like in the stock market where, like, oh, this is already priced in. Like, when they have advanced notice that the Fed is going to raise something by whatever, like, the market will kind of react to it. And by the time the news actually comes out, it was already factored in, right? So, like, a lot of the harm has already been priced in. We've already absorbed the harm, most of it, and we're on the other side of it.
To some extent, I think you're probably right, but not the way that you ought to be. But like, I think that all of this shit has happened for a very long time. That people have always, at the diner or at the barber shop or wherever the fuck people gather at the gas station, sitting around doing scratch offs, they just say and make up crazy fucking shit, and they believe it, and that's how misinformation has always traveled. It's just the way that people talk with one another.
Right.
There is something about the performance of that in this weird combination of the public-private space that is social media, where you're always on, and it seems like there used to be a way that when you left the gas station after shooting the shit for an hour with your buddies, that was the end of it.
Yes.
And then you went on and you did other things, or you leave the barber shop, or you leave the coffee, and then you're on with the rest of your life. It's never turned off anymore, and that's the fundamental thing that's changed, I think. So that's why, to some extent, I think you're right. It's all fine. It's all priced in. This is just part of the human condition. But the technology matters. This is there's a dramatically new element involved, and it's this complete inability to turn it off or just make it go away.
Right.
Anyway, we should probably start the show. Although, I don't know how much attention I'll be paying to my own words, never mind yours, as I watch this Eagles game in my phone.
Consider it one.
The proceeding was created with 100% human content.